You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
And thank you for joining us for another exciting episode of Truth, Justice, and the New England Pro Wrestling Way. My name is Matt Spectro, a.k.a. Tarzan Taylor. As always, I'm joined by my fellow host. He is a former Liberty States Wrestling Heavyweight Champion, and he's also a man who loves a good trampoline park, Julian Starr.
Because for the guy my size, I can still flip, brother. That's why I like trampoline parks. It makes you feel like a kid again.
All right. We are here again for the premier podcast about wrestling in the New England area, the greatest area for pro wrestling in the country, as far as I'm concerned. Both natives of the New England area. And here we are for episode 10. Pretty exciting, isn't it?
Yeah. You know when people say, like, oh, I didn't know how we got here. You know when people are like, oh, we had episode 10. I don't know how we got this far. Did you believe it? Yeah, I do. We just have to hit the record button and continue to record.
I want to thank everyone out there who's ever listened. Even if it's only one episode, we appreciate it. We've been trying every week to get better and better at this show. We appreciate any feedback and anybody who listens or likes us on Facebook. What would you say? Do you have a favorite episode so far?
Probably Sheldon Goldberg's episode, just because he was willing to, literally bury everyone and anyone. And it was fun to listen to.
It's hard to pick one. I am a big fan of the Maverick one, and only because I hadn't seen Maverick in so while, it was good to sit down and catch up with him.
Yeah.
But I think every episode I've had highlights and lowlights, if you will.
I guess so.
Who do you think you'd like to see in an ideal world? Who would you like to get on the show going forward?
I would really like to have Drew Cordero on the podcast, because I feel like he doesn't do any interviews and no one's really ever talked to him. I know he has that little YouTube clip that kind of came out and explained Beyond Wrestling, but I'd like to dig in more. I don't really know. Drew Cordero is like the biggest one right now that I've really wanted to talk to about Beyond Wrestling. That's the one I'm most curious about.
Well, in an ideal world, if our choices were limitless in New England, I'd want someone like a Kofi Kingston, Triple H, somebody who came from New England and has had huge success. Obviously, that's unrealistic. But I'd like to see what is her name? TC Tapes. Tanya Cornell?
Lee.
Tanya Lee. No, Tanya Lee.
Yes, Tanya Cornell.
Have someone who's been in the production end of things, who's been around for as long as I've been in the business. I think she's been around. She's seen it all, worked for so many different companies. I think she'd make an interesting subject for a podcast.
Yeah, I think she could elaborate as to what it takes to, get the production side ready. Plus, I think she did. Well, yeah, she just does video. I was going to say pictures, but she just does videos, right?
Yeah, I don't think she takes pictures, just production gear.
Yeah,
I think
it would be kind
we'd have to ask her if we get her on the show.
I didn't know. I don't know if more goes into it than what we assume. We all just assume you point, you shoot, you edit, but maybe more goes into it. We're not sure, so I'd like to have her on as well.
All right, so before we get to this week's topic, we're going to hit you with this week's New England Wrestling Trivia. You didn't fare so well last week. We're going to see if we can do better.
Nope, it's not going to happen. And I'll tell you why, my man. Because this is too goddamn early. It's too early in the morning. My brain is not fully functional. I have not had my Monster yet. I'm in the process of drinking one. So, to boot, I also don't know much of anything. I thought I did, but I don't. So, get ready for a huge fail.
All right. You lost to Anthony Green last episode, so
and I'm going to lose to our guest.
And you have an unfair advantage. You get to answer the question before.
Yeah.
All right. The date, February 8th, 2008. Lowell, Massachusetts, the Polish American Veterans Club. Chaotic Wrestling presents Cold Fury 7. The Golden Greek, Alex Arion, is in a championship versus career match. What future TNA superstar did he wrestle in that match?
Oh, my God. TNA? Wait, did you say future TNA superstar?
In the sense of when the match happened, this person was not a TNA superstar.
And now they are.
I honestly don't know if they are now.
Okay, but they were.
I don't think they were, but they went on to fame in TNA wrestling.
And he defended his title.
It was championship versus career. The chaotic New England championship versus the career of said individual.
Because I was going to go with Nikki Rocks because she was in TNA, but I can't.
Ding, 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 ding,
Whoa!
Yes, he did it. He got it, folks.
All right.
He got it. It only took 2 tries. Second week, you got the answer correct. Yes, it was Nikki Rocks, soon to be known as Roxy Laveau in TNA. It was her career against the New England Championship Wrestling.
All right. Well, I'm 1 for 1. I'm 1 for 1. I can appreciate that.
All right. On that exciting note, we're going to move on to our topic this week. We're going to talk about managers.
Yeah, I've always been curious about the management role in professional wrestling, but when I state that, I don't mean running a wrestling promotion or anything, but the guy who happens to be on the outside who feels somewhat like a hype man or feels like a cheerleader. I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sure what the point of a manager is, and so I'm super glad we're going to attack this topic because, one, I feel it's a dying science, and two, I really don't know what the point of it was, so it's going to be good to be able to elaborate on that.
We're going to introduce our guest. He is a manager in the New England area, and he is managed in such wrestling companies as Chaotic Wrestling, Limitless Wrestling, AAW, Top Rope Wrestling, Brisk League Wrestling, Front Row Wrestling, EWA, and Shakara. He is the one, the only, Joey Eastman.
Hello. I actually thought the answer to the question was going to be Steven the Turtle Whiner. That's always the answer, no matter what.
Now I wish Julian had gotten it wrong.
Damn it.
All right, thanks for joining us this week. We're going to talk about managing in the New England area as well as just indie wrestling and a little bit about your career, but also just about the topic of managing in general.
Yeah, I'm excited. I don't know. I haven't done a podcast like this in 7 or 8 years at least, so I'm very excited to talk about me.
And that's why I was so hell-bent on getting you, because the WPAN, which is the wrestling podcast about nothing, or no, it wasn't them, sorry, Let the Chaos Begin, ended up having Sean Gorman on. Mm-hmm. And so he was going to be one of my choices too. And we want to get the perspective of every manager because not everyone lived the same career and has the same outlook. But I wanted to get him too, but they ended up having him. And then I was trying to rack my brain. I was like, oh yeah, Joey Eastman doesn't do interviews. So why don't we try and get him on?
Normally it's Sidney Bakabella doing the interview, which is 100% shtick and gimmick. If you book Sidney, you get Sidney.
Yeah.
So this year I haven't done one of these in years, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too.
Before we get to the questions, I did a little research, and I don't know if this is correct. It says the first time you were on a show was June 13th, 2003 in Rockford, Illinois for MCW.
Yeah, Marinelli Stadium. I actually bought a ticket to that show. So the promoter did not even give me a refund on my ticket. So I technically paid to be on my first show. But I was outside smoking a cigarette, and I see him walking around that he doesn't have a ring announcer. The ring announcer's not here. So I was in the Navy at the time, and I'm like, I'll do it. I just stand up and volunteer to this guy that I had no idea who it was. And he's like, he just laughs. And then he comes back 3 minutes later, and he's like, do you think you can do it? And I'm like, yeah, why not? I've seen it done before. And that was my first show as a ring announcer.
That's a crazy start. So we always start with kind of a little bit of a softball. And at what moment in your life, not necessarily managing, but did you decide that pro wrestling was life for you? Oh,
when I was a little kid. I would say 6, 7 years old. That's all I wanted to do, but I didn't want to be a wrestler. I actually wanted to be Howard Finkel. I would emulate Howard Finkel everywhere I went. Walking around the halls in school, I would announce things, from Seattle, Washington, Greg the Hammer Valentine. And it was always doing that, but I knew I wanted to do something in wrestling. Didn't know what until I got, 20 years old, 21 years old. But yeah, ever since I was a little kid.
Well, if you, I'm not sure your age, but if you remember the 80s, I started wrestling, watching wrestling in the 80s, and managers were like a huge deal at that point.
Yeah.
Like everybody had a manager. You almost weren't a heel if you didn't have a manager. Is that the era that managing started to appeal to you?
Yeah, the first time I saw wrestling, my mom or dad left the TV on after the A-Team, and it was wrestling coming on right after it, and they opened with Mr. T. So I don't know any better, but I see Mr. T, so I'm going to watch it. And then King Kong Bundy came out, and I was hooked. And then after school every day on ESPN, I would come home and watch. It started as Texas wrestling, and then it went to the AWA where I discovered Sergeant Slaughter. And I'm 38 years old now, so that is my era with all the managers.
It says you were born in Boston, Massachusetts. Is that correct?
No, I was born in New Bedford, actually. Yeah. Yep. So I would go to every 2 weeks. I would go to the Joe Eugenio shows. From like 1990 to 92. It was right around the corner from my parents' apartment, and I would collect cans for 2 weeks because you get a nickel every time you do it. So I would collect cans for 2 weeks. And then go to the shows. I would have enough money to buy a ticket to the show, a hot dog, and a 5x7 picture that they sold that I would get autographed by one of the guys.
Nice.
I wish I still had those, because like a Shockwave or a Bruno the Boston Bodyguard picture, that would probably be worth so much money right now.
So is there an active point where you're like, all right, managing, I'm going to be a manager, this is going to happen?
So I joined the Navy, and that's sort of when I knew. Before I joined, I went to a few Lobsterman shows in Hudson,
right.
And I knew I didn't want to do that. Like I wanted, I love Lobsterman. I love all the guys. I appreciate the shows now, but as a 17, 18, 19-year-old or 18-year-old kid, that wasn't the wrestling that I wanted to do. I wanted to do, I wanted to be in the WWE and, but I realized at that point that I wanted to get into wrestling, and that I saw some of those guys on the shows, and I'm like, I can do it. I can easily get in if I go to a school and all that.
All right. Well, I mean, full disclosure, because we're all about honesty, I've never been a big fan of managers in the independent scene.
You've never been a fan of me. I know. You've told Sonny Goodspeed that I steal heat, and we're going to discuss that. All right? I know.
You are. Tarzan is now crawling in his skin. If anyone knows Tarzan, in his mind, he's like, fuck.
No, but I've never been a bit, and it's not you specifically. It's a lot of them I just don't think have been that I've experienced have been very good. Some of them I do think steal heat. I think some of them, I don't want to say marks, but they want to be in there, but they don't want to do.
They're not athletic enough to do it.
No,
I get it.
Or they don't want to put the effort that it takes to actually get into the ring.
Yeah, when I started training, it was in Milwaukee for Carmine Despirito. And it was, I was in the Navy, so I get off duty and drive an hour and a half to Milwaukee from the base, set up his ring by myself. And, he would be directing me, of course. And then get in there and he'd teach me how to bump and how to, do all that. But as far as like the chain wrestling stuff and all that, he was a manager himself that ran shows. So he didn't do that. I didn't learn all that until I came out to the East Coast. I don't even know what year it was, but it had to be like 07, 08-ish, where I learned with Mav and Lobsterman how to do all that. I didn't know for the first 4 years how to do a wrist lock, but I was told I didn't have to because I'd never have to use it.
No, I'd say. Yeah, the odds of you ever having to use a wrist lock.
Still haven't. 16 years, never done a wrist lock.
And that's what I was going to ask you, like, when it came to training. Mm-hmm. Like, we had Crockett on, and he had talked about Todd Sinclair training as a wrestler, even though he was actively trying to be a referee. So I was going to ask, like, if you trained as a wrestler or just a manager.
Oh, yeah. I was trained up there, and then when I came out here, I was going to MAV school 4 days a week. And I wanted to learn the psychology of wrestling. That's what a manager needs. You don't need to know how to do all the moves. You need to know the psychology of it, and that's what I wanted. I wanted the timing. I wanted all that shit.
How long? And I wanted to ask Crockett about Todd Sinclair and whatnot, but like, how long does your training go? I mean, do you just go, all right, let me learn bumps, or You know, I don't know if it's different for you guys because a lot of times, like, most wrestlers don't stop training.
Yeah, ever.
I don't know if managers like hit a point where they're like, all right, I know how to take a decent bump, and I kind of get the picture, so I'm done.
Let's see. With the MAV thing, I was going there 4 times a week for at least a year and a half, 2 years. But I'll still, like, if I, now I'm old and I don't want to do shit. But, if I still had an opportunity or free time to go to a wrestling school, I totally would. And I'd totally roll around and shit like that. I just, you don't stop, even as a manager. Like, most managers I see should be in there before every show, like, doing something. And instead, they're just hanging out on the floor. Like, that's all I see right now.
And do you feel it's because they just think they're really good at their craft, or do you feel like...
No, they don't know any better. They're not trained.
I got you.
So a lot of these guys, they're going, and I'll throw out the Bell Time Club. Like, they're just going there and, I want to be a manager. All right, give me your money. And that's it. They're not really being trained on what to do. So they get to the shows, and there are managers that'll come up to me saying, I'm like, well, when it's time to bump, what are you going to do? And there are 2 guys in the area, one of them, Howitson Davis there, who told me that he can't physically bump. And I'm like, what are you going to do when it's time for the payoff?
Yeah.
And, I like the guy a lot. I think, he's a perfectly acceptable person. But if you can't bump or physically give your body to your opponent when it's time, you're worthless, like, as a manager.
Yeah.
We're going to get back to the training in a minute, but since you both want to put me on the spot, Julian, what do you think of independent wrestling managers?
I actually genuinely like them. I've liked every single manager. I love Joey Eastman's shtick about Sidney Bakabella. It's probably one of the most entertaining gimmicks I've ever seen. I loved Sean Gorman, and I could listen to him cut a promo for days. I loved watching Marshall McNeil. He made me laugh so hard. So I always liked independent wrestling managers, and it's really sad to see that it almost feels like there is no use for them and that it is a dying art, and I feel like there's so much talent out there that's just going to go to waste.
Well, we're going to get into the whole thing about that. I just want to get that away. When it comes to training, and you'd said how a lot of guys can't bump or whatnot, what are your feelings on, like, I always feel that their bumps can't be too crisp.
No.
Because then you want it to look like awkward, like almost.
Yeah, it's got to be... I can't go in there and look like I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I need to know how to land safely, but if I take a perfect back bump, wrestling's fake to me, and it exposes everything. If I can do all that, I should be in there wrestling. So if I can do it a little differently, my bumps have to be 1.5 times bigger than the wrestler's bumps, but I don't have to do it all the time. So I can take these huge, elaborate bumps that look like I die, but if I only do it and I limit my bumps to 6 bumps a year, and I really keep track of where I bump and how many times I do it, so that way I'm not killing my gimmick. But yeah, you need to know how to bump, but you need to know how to do it different than other managers or other wrestlers.
Because on a former episode, we had Brian Fury, and we talked about running a wrestling school, and he said one of the hang-ups he had about, not wanting to accept a student is when they come in saying they want to be a manager, and he had said, well, I don't want to take your money and train. I don't know how to train you as a manager. Would you say that is like a difficult thing to
No, the dumbass should call me. I'll come down there, give me a few $100. I'll show up once or twice a week. I'll show him, you get 75%, give me 25%. There we go. Now you train managers. They still need to know how to bump. Yeah. They still need to know psychology. You're leaving money on the table. When you're out of business, I'm taking everything, Brian Fury.
Matt, have you seen the student? I don't know if you have, but his name's Jason Pepe.
I wouldn't know a name, but I might have seen him.
He's like the bald guy, kind of tall. He has like a goatee.
Yeah, I think I've seen him once, maybe.
He, out of all the students, was like, how do I become a manager?
The tall one?
Yes. He wanted to be a talking role. The guy that looks like a wrestler wanted to be a manager. And I was like, nah, dude, I don't give a shit. You look like a wrestler. You're not being a manager.
Yeah, it's because people think it's easy.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And I don't know. I go out back after a match. I'm sweating more than the guys. Like, you actually have to work when you're out there. And there's a huge difference between working and wrestling. A normal person can't work, but you can teach them how to wrestle. Yeah. The working part is something that's given to you, like, by God. Mm-hmm. You can't be taught how to work, because if you are, then it's fake. Like, it's forced.
Yeah. Did you have like peers or whatever, guys, other managers, like saying, hey, you should do this, or hey, work on this when you first broke into the business?
Yeah, one guy, and he is my mentor. He's the original Sidney Bakabella. Like, his gimmick in the 70s was Sidney Bakabella for Angelo Poffo is Ed Schumann. And this guy, like, he took me everywhere. And it was mainly so I could carry his shit into the buildings, because he couldn't do it anymore. But he would pick me up at my house, drive me to the shows, and give me just experience in the car, just listening to him. What I should do, what I shouldn't do, when to get heat, when not to get heat. He was the biggest, still in 16 years, like the biggest advocate for me. And then there was like Carmine DeSpirito, who, trained me essentially. He was really, really big in watching my stuff and then calling me at 4 a.m. when he's drunk just to shit on me. Like, nothing good was ever said, but I see Carmine calling and I think somebody's dead, so I answer. And really, he's just shit-faced drunk wanting to shit on me.
Well, I don't know about Julian, but when I first ever tried to be a wrestler, I did a tryout for Lobster Man's company, and it was you paid him $50, and they had you go through all these basic exercises, some lockups, and then we individually talked to Lobster Man. And he asked questions, and one of the things he had said to me was about, there's a lot of guys in this business, the odds of you making it. Now with a manager, there's even less spots than there is with wrestlers. So did anyone ever say to you, well, maybe there's not very many opportunities for managers these days. Are you sure this is what you want to do?
They still say it. Everybody wants me to be a commentator. And I just, like, it hurt. My thing is, I don't want to stay at the shows the whole time. Like, I want to leave at intermission. Like, if I'm doing commentary, it's like, oh shit, I wake up at 6 a.m. and then go to work all day long and then go to your show. Now I have to stay there until like 11. Sometimes even later, because I have to wait to get paid. So, I'll do it because I like the money that commentary gives, but, I know I'm not going to make it anywhere as far as WWE or anything like that. I'm cool with that. I have a really, really good job, to the point where if anybody ever called me for a job, I'd probably turn it down because it would be less money. So, and I need health insurance. I need all that. So.
Yeah, but when you broke in, it was over a decade ago. Was it any different then?
No, there was less managers at that time. There was, like, at the time, there were no managers on TV. And then the first manager was Armando Estrada. And it was like, oh my God, there's a ray of light, and it was work harder, work everywhere. And then he was gone, and it was just girls on TV for years. So, yeah, I sort of knew in the back of my head I'd never get a job as a manager, but I was having fun, and I wanted to learn wrestling, because it's not just managing that I could do. I could learn production. I can, if I really wanted a job at the time, I could have, gone into production, learn how to time shows, shit like that, which I did, but it just never happened to me.
I know a lot of people tend to, well, not really, but I guess a lot of people don't like to say things that may sound egotistical about themselves, but if you had come up in the right era, do you think you would have gotten a job?
Oh, not only would I have gotten a job, I would have been making billions of dollars. I'd be married to 4 different women right now, and we would be doing this podcast being fed grapes by these women. No, I don't know. Like, I would hope so. But wrestling was even harder back then to get into. Yeah. So there were no wrestling schools in the 70s and 80s. So a lot of old fans are like, "Oh, you're a generation too late." I'm like, "Fuck you." Like, shut up. You don't think I know that as I'm, going to my office job every day? Thanks a lot.
Well, I'll co-sign and say that based on the stuff I've ever seen you do, I think you would have definitely had a job. in WWE and whatnot back in the day. It's just
Yeah.
it's just the way that the timeline fell.
And it's fine. Like I'm totally happy being a guy that looks like me that's in wrestling. Like I'm not athletic looking. I'm barely athletic enough to do a match.
Yeah.
So, it's fine. Like whatever. Like I'm totally cool with what I've done in wrestling. I think I've done way more than I should.
I think some people they can't appreciate what they're doing while they're doing it in wrestling. Some people always look back and say, "Well, I didn't make it to WWE," which I can understand that. But I think we all have to look at what we did in wrestling and say, I had a lot of fun. I met a lot of people. I got to entertain a lot of people.
Yeah.
Now, thanks to the internet, people all over the world can see my stuff, even though I'm not famous. So I think people should be a little bit more. No matter what success you had, be a little more appreciative of the opportunities we all got.
For sure. Like, I haven't, since my son has started going to wrestling, we haven't bought tickets to WWE, but we've sat front row every time they've come to the area. And it's just a quick text message like, hey, I want to bring my kid out. My kid gets to experience wrestling because of me. He has no idea, but and that to me right there is, it saves me $200, so I'm happy with it. I don't give a fuck.
When I trained, my best friend from high school trained with me, and I had other guys in my class. So every time I was feeling frustrated, I always had people to fall back on. But were you training with anybody else trying to be a manager?
No.
So that had to be kind of rough.
I had to keep it a secret when I was in the Navy because I'd get in trouble because I could get hurt. So they would have put the kibosh on that right away. So it was, I would get off duty at 5. I was in Milwaukee by 7. I was home probably 11:30 midnight, and no one knew. And then I started taking bookings, and you in the Navy you have duty on like a Saturday or Sunday once a month, where it's just like an extra work day for no reason. And I would always switch those days out and cover other people's days. And after a while, they were like, "Why are you doing this? Every time you have duty." And they're just like, what's going on? So finally I told one person and they tell everyone, but it was at the point where I was almost out of the Navy at the time. So it was cool. Like, I did it for about a year with no one knowing that I was doing this shit.
Yeah, it had to have been pre-social media.
It was 2004.
Yeah, now you could never get
No way. Like there'd be a picture on there and, yeah.
And do you remember the first show you actually were on as a manager?
Yeah, it was for Frankie DeFalco in Waukesha, Wisconsin. And it was January of 2004. And I managed Crazy Jack Berserker.
What a great name.
So he would come out in cut-off camouflage pants and pantyhose on his head. That's a thing in the Midwest, is pantyhose on your head. It's essentially the Goon Squad. And it's when they're so green, they just wear pantyhose on their head. And yeah, it's really weird. And it's a Rockin' Randy thing. Oh, let me add somebody to the list here. But yeah, it's a rite of passage. Like, even if you go back and listen to podcasts with like Punk and Cabana, they'll talk about the Goon Squad.
Yeah.
And Crazy Jack Berserker had the pantyhose, but this guy was about 6'2", 280, solid muscle.
Jeez.
Like, he looked amazing. Worst wrestler ever. Smallest penis I'd ever seen. Like, it was, you see this guy that he will kill you. He was so roided out.
Yeah.
And then you see him in the locker room with this half a thumb. And it was like weird. But you never said anything to him because he like roid raged out. He actually went to jail for somebody beeped at him he was at a red light that turned green. Mm-hmm. Somebody beeped at him. He got out of the car and beat the dude up. Like, he was so gassed out.
So I ask everyone, their first experience. You get through it. Julie and I both talked about our first match, how we were like, okay, it wasn't great, but we had this is what we want to keep doing. Mm-hmm. Was it like that for you, or were you like, oh, fuck, this is horrible, I don't want to do this again?
No, I was so high from it. Like, it was a genuine high. Nobody said good job. Everybody picked it apart, what I could do better, which is what should have happened. Like, I know that the first time I managed, it wasn't good.
Yeah.
Like I was probably running around the ring completely. I wasn't, standing in the ring, cutting a promo. I was probably walking around. I did everything wrong, and they fixed that. But the next show, I fixed one thing that they talked about that I remembered, and it just built over the years. But yeah, I liked it. Like it was a high, and I probably do a lot of things different, 16 years later. But yeah, I loved it.
It's weird that you say that because that's one of the things I have about, and this is one of the things I don't like about managers, and this actually I don't think are the manager's fault. A lot of times it's just like, I just throw them out there with this guy, and no one pays attention to what they do. No one gives a shit what they do, so they never learn what they should and shouldn't be doing in a wrestling match. So it's actually refreshing to hear that people were like watching you and saying you did this wrong and that wrong.
The Midwest scene at the time was like they were very compassionate, and I don't see that a lot in wrestling now. But there were guys like Rashi Brown and Steve Stone who pulled me aside. Then Frank DeFalco, the promoter, after that. And all they did, I call it shitting on me, but they wanted me to get better. Like they wanted me to be good, and they kept getting me bookings. It wasn't the time of Facebook where I could have messaged someone and said, "Hey, I'd love to come to your show." It was one of the boys had to get you booked somewhere else, and that was sort of how my career went.
Just to play off what you said, I'm just going to state this in general for everyone listening who's in the professional wrestling world. Stop asking for what you did right and start asking for what you've done wrong. You're never going to learn what you do right. You should be able to pick that up easily because the crowd will react to it. Ask what you did wrong. Figure out what you were missing, because that's how you're going to learn to perfect your craft. Stop trying to get a compliment blowjob every time you come back from your match. I just wanted to state that because that seems to be a big thing that I see a lot, and the fact that Eastman is stating that he was very receptive to negative feedback. And of course, everyone thinks they're being shit on, but it's so that they can tell you like that sucks, don't do it. This works,
and that's how you get better. Like if everyone just blew me after every match, I would still be the same manager I was in 05, just probably doing even more wrong. And I thank God that I had those people to say, "Hey, stop, you're stealing heat." Like, that was such a big thing. Like, I wish Tarzan would have said that to me when he was booking, because you booked, right? You were a booker?
I heard that.
I heard about that.
For Chaotic Wrestling.
Chaotic, yeah, I've heard of them. But I wish Tarzan would have told me that.
Well, I'll full truth, justice, Crossing way. I have a bad habit when I was in the business. I didn't always express my feelings to people directly. You can call it insecurity. You can call it not like whatever you want to call it. Yeah, that's one of my regrets is I didn't do that more in a more constructive way when I was in the business.
I feel, and I always complain about that. Not about you, but about that in wrestling, that if somebody doesn't like something, they don't tell the person. They tell their three buddies who then tell other people. Nobody is a man anymore. Like, if I don't like someone, I will tell you. Like, I will confront you. I love confrontation. I love uncomfortableness. So I want to walk up to somebody and essentially say, "Look, I don't like that, and here's why." And at the end of the day, you guys are cool afterwards. Like, instead of just hating someone for years and years and years and shit canning them to everyone else, yeah, they're not men. Like, fucking be men. As I look directly at the microphone when I say that. I don't know if you noticed that.
I just feel like everyone just wants to be accepted and be friends with everyone, and no one can ever accept the fact that like there's just some people in this world that don't like you. Yeah. And I'm a little different in the sense that I'm a speak when spoken to kind of guy. So I try to keep my mouth shut now because I learned from my past. But if I don't like someone, I just try not to deal with them. And so a lot of people are thinking like, "Oh shit, he doesn't come talk to me ever." It's not that I don't like you, it's just introverted and I don't really want to talk to anyone. But yeah, I don't understand why everyone's so afraid to have a negative connotation about themselves.
Yeah. Or have a conversation where it starts off negative and ends positive.
Yeah.
That's the coolest thing. And that always happens in wrestling. Like Brett Domino
Yeah.
had a problem with someone, and I forget who it was. And I'm just like, go talk to him. Like, stop being a pussy. Go. And he did, and they ended up resolving it, and it was cool. Like, just stop. Like, just either fight or be friends. Like,
Yeah.
but I want more fist fights.
It wasn't until I became a stepfather that I really dawned on me how much communication directly with the person is important. I regret my wrestling, not all, but I regret that I didn't handle that better when I was in wrestling. So I think it would have it would have benefited me on top of the people I was dealing with.
You wouldn't have got fired by Jamie.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, you blew that $1 million. You blew it.
To be fair, Tarzan quit.
I know.
So getting back on track a little on managers, we tend to trail philosophically a lot on this podcast. Were there any other managers on the first show you managed?
Carmine DeSpirito was on, and Carmine to me, because like you look at your trainer in such high regard, he was so good, and Carmine was like 6'7", so he is so tall, and like just such a big personality. I was never going to be able to, in my head, be Carmine. Dave Prazak managed on the show, guy that runs Shimmer. I'm trying to think. I think that was it. Like there were 3 managers that night, which is way more than there should have been.
That's 3 including you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And we've talked about this with refs. We've talked about it with wrestlers. Sometimes a lot of heat. Hey, this guy's trying to steal my spot. That come up at all when you first time?
No. Because Prazak wanted to break away and do promoting. So he really helped me out as well. And that's a guy's name I should have mentioned because I screwed him over just this past April. But yeah, Prazak was really instrumental in getting me a ton of bookings like IWA Mid-South, all those. So because he wanted to stop managing and do more of a backstage promoting and, just like a real promoter. So,
But you never heard of any kind of interbusiness heat between managers? What about like as time went on with like Marshall McNeil's or John Rodeo or whatever?
No, not Marshall, not John. I always felt Gorman and I had that professional heat. Like
Gotcha.
I had one conversation with Sean Gorman the entire time that he was around or that I was around him. We had one real conversation at NEWF and it was fine. Like I don't know, maybe it's in my head that I thought, oh, he's another manager, I have to hate him. But like I didn't hate him. I just, sort of avoided him and went other places that he wasn't. But he was established around here when I came out, so he was working the good places. I had to work the shit places, and then he quits the business, so now I get all the business.
And I think that's where most heat stems from in professional wrestling. Is it's a false reality we all create in our head. Is I'm in the same spot as them, and if you feel like internally like I'm doing really good at this spot, you automatically think whoever had or is in the same spot is like I immediately hate you.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I always think like I still think it now. Like when I see other managers, I'm like, that's what he's doing wrong. All right, fuck that guy. He's doing that wrong. Probably working for $20. Fuck him. Like, and I shouldn't do that, but that's just my personality. I have a very big personality, and I think very highly of myself because no one else does. So I'm gonna give myself the rub. Nobody else will give it to me.
Well, I've talked to Gorman, and he's said this opinion to a lot of people that he's always been adamant about every show should have one manager, and that's it. Now, some would say he just wants to be the only manager, so there's no competition. Some would say it's a smart idea because a manager can only do so much. Mm-hmm. I mean, what are you thinking that?
I actually like, and this is for 2 reasons. I like when there's another manager on the show because it makes me work harder. And when I work harder, they can see that I'm better. Like the fans can see that I'm the better manager. And even if I'm not, in my head, I'm the better fucking manager. Like, that's just how I think. But in terms of managers can only do so much, you talk to the other manager and you say, hey, are you doing the cutoff where you grab the foot, or are you doing where you choke the guy on the ropes? Like, it's all the same shit. And you just don't do what the other manager does. If you're both cutting a promo, hey, are you going to do the hometown thing, or are you going to do the my guy's sexy thing? Like, which promo are you cutting today? And if you work with the other guy, there's room for so many managers.
And I'm guessing when you started, you had no choice on who you managed.
No,
It was just...
no, the promoters just threw me with people. It was, oh, you can talk, go out there with him. But my first match, I bumped in my first match. And I look back on that, and that is like the biggest regret that I have is I bumped in that first match.
Do you feel like a lot of people utilize the manager bump as like a crutch?
Yeah. Every match I'm in, oh, hey, we're going to bump you. No, you're not. Like, I'm very protective of my bumps because I want them to make sense.
Yeah.
Like, you can use me all you want, but don't use me for that big bump when we can get more out of it down the road.
Yeah, whose idea was that to bump you on your very first night out there?
The Crazy Jack Berserker. You don't tell Crazy Jack Berserker, no. Like, I will bump, yes. And... yeah, he wrestled the X-Man Xavier Mustafa. I'm so proud that I remember that, who was a large African-American man, about 450 pounds. And I do the thing where I hop up on the apron, Xavier Mustafa comes over, and you know how like they do the thing where you grab the manager on the apron? No.
Yeah.
He just walks over and punches me. Like, there was no selling it or anything. And he like punches me in the forehead too. It was great.
Well, I've never seen him. I can't imagine I would say no to a guy named Crazy Jack Berserker.
I don't even know if there's anything on YouTube of Crazy Jack Berserker, but I remember my first actual match, I teamed with Crazy Jack Berserker and Tommy Courageous in a 6-man tag. Tommy Courageous was very courageous. He got in the ring with that limited amount of talent, and he was very courageous for doing it. But we wrestled Frankie DeFalco, Jake the Milkman Milliman, and
oh my God, Jake the Milkman!
That was my very first match.
He was still around at that point.
Yeah,
oh my God.
And he still had the rat tail. It was my first match was opposite Jake the Milkman Milliman and Keith Walker, who is a big jacked up dude. But yeah, like, I don't even know where I was going with that because I think about Jake Milliman and I get excited. But yeah, Crazy Jack Berserker. Yeah. So Crazy Jack Berserker and Keith Walker get into like a real fight in the match. I've never seen that before. Like, they're really fighting. So Frankie DeFalco just grabs me. He's like, I'm going to beat you up in the corner, kid. Let them fight. And they just start going, and he's choking me. But I'm trying to watch, like, them fight. And, oh, it was great. Crazy Jack Berserker is nuts. Like, look him up on YouTube.
So it's not just a clever name.
No, he's Crazy Jack Berserker. He was so gassed out. Like, I love it.
And to just to quickly get back a little back on track as far as being a manager, who would you say was like your biggest influence coming up? Like when you were growing up and you're like, I want to be a manager. I have to assume I know who it is, but who was your biggest influence?
Captain Lou Albano.
Really?
Yeah, it wasn't Bobby Heenan. Everybody thinks Bobby Heenan. I loved Captain Lou Albano because I never felt like he was doing the wrestling shtick. I thought he was just genuinely a crazy drunk guy going out there rambling, and I loved it. He's mentioned like my guy drinks unborn virgin goat milk. I still use that line to this day. Like he talked about wrestling balance. I don't know what wrestling balance is, but it was a thing. So I loved the crazy shit that he said. Bobby Heenan, yeah, like of course you're a manager, you've got to look up to Bobby Heenan. I liked Jimmy Hart because he was fast. Mm-hmm. Like I always looked at Jimmy Hart as the fast little guy, so I always liked him. Yeah, like just not Gary Hart. I never liked Gary Hart. He was the least favorite.
All right, we're going to take a little break, but we can come back. We're going to talk about you returning to New England as a wrestling manager and more just about being a manager in general. When we come back, more with Joey Eastman on Truth, Justice, and the New England Pro Wrestling Way.
I'm pro wrestler The Kingpin Brian Malonis.
And I'm referee Mike Crockett from the Wrestling Podcast About Nothing.
I spent most of my weekends half naked in front of throngs of people at VFW halls and Elks Lodges.
And I've watched. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Every week, listen to us tear down the curtain and tear down each other in the process.
It's the WPAN. Nothing more, nothing less.
New episodes Mondays on your favorite podcast app or on our website, thewpan.com.
So move. Hey. That's a good move. I can't believe it. I'm losing to a rug.
Genie, I need help. All right, Sparky, here's the deal. If you want to court the little lady, you gotta be a straight shooter. Do you got it? What? Tell her the truth!
And we're back with Truth, Justice, and the New England Pro Wrestling Way, Julian. And we're talking this week about wrestling managers.
Yeah, wrestling managers are, I think, a important aspect to any professional wrestling match. I feel like WWE as well as New England Wrestling should utilize them more, because I feel like nowadays there's a lot of people out there that can't really talk or cut a promo, and I feel like the guys who are managers, almost all of them, can cut one. So I think we should as a unit try to utilize them more.
And we're here with Joey Eastman.
Just utilize me more. Like, you know, the pay's great. Like most play, like I'm cool with it.
So we left you were in the Midwest, but then you came back to New England.
Yeah, you know, this is gonna probably go into people I dislike later, but Ed Schuman's like, there's a guy out east named Sheldon Goldberg that, you know, I'll hook you up with him when you move out there, and he'll give you work. So I guess Eddie messages Sheldon, and then I email Sheldon, and he's like, send me, you know, a match or two where you manage, and like a whole package.
Yeah. And
I did it. Like, and I look back at it now, like, what a fucking mark. Like, that's not how it should have been done. But I did it. I sent it all to his Jamaica Plain. I remember Jamaica Plain so vividly where I sent it. It was, I believe, a P.O. box. And, you know, Eddie's like, yeah, he'll, you know, when you go out there, you know, he'll definitely use you. And then nothing ever happened. Like, not even no, we don't have anything for you at this time. Like, not even a you suck. It was nothing. So I'm like, all right, I got to figure this out. So I reached out to everyone, and the only guy to contact me back was Mav. And like, I contacted Steve Bradley. I contacted Slam All-Star Wrestling in Northern Vermont, and they used me, but I feel like they would use anyone. But Mav was like, you live in Nashua, come out to my school, and I'll take a look at you. And I went to the school, and I had just dislocated my shoulder falling down the stairs drunk, like 2 days before. So I show up to the school in a sling, so I couldn't like roll around with them or anything. But I brought the same essential package that I sent to Sheldon. And he popped a DVD player in at the school. All the boys came around watching it, and Mav gave me a date for Claremont, New Hampshire. And he was the first guy out here that did it. And I was at a school 4 days a week, and I'm forever in debt to Mav.
Do you feel like that other promotions didn't really want anything to do with you because managing wasn't a thing? Do you feel like it was your talent?
They didn't know me. Like, and that's a big thing in New England, even to this day, is you get more bookings if you're over with the boys than if you're over with the fans. I wasn't over with anybody out here, so I was legit an island to myself. And that first Mav show was where I met Heresy. And then it sort of steamrolled from there to getting bookings everywhere else. But up until somebody vouched for me, and Sonny Goodspeed vouched for me a ton, up until that, nobody would even respond to my emails or MySpace messages at the time.
Do you feel like it's harder to get a spot as a manager as opposed to a ref or a wrestler?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because, well, yes and no, actually. Yes, if I'm looking for a payday, because it's an added expense that nobody wants. If I'm willing to work for free, I can work any show I want in New England. I could work 8 times a week probably, but I'd lose so much money. So that's why you see managers on shows, and I can just tell by looking at you, you work for free. I can see it.
To this day, has Sheldon ever responded?
No. We have never had any sort of conversation other than a, hey, how are you? Like a handshake at a convention or something like that.
See, I'm surprised because they've used a lot of managers in NACW.
Not me.
I'm surprised they've never
Not
used
me. I must have done something in that, in that email that I sent. I must have insulted them or something.
Did you have a discussion about money and you just seemed too expensive?
No, because at the time I would have worked for free because my whole thing was I wanted to get my name out there in New England and take a couple of bookings, and then you start charging. It's like a heroin dealer. Like you give them a little bit of it for free, and then you charge them later on. I was working for free for like my first 3 months when I moved out here, just so that people could see what I could do.
And I feel like it was weirdly a good analogy, the whole like try my drugs and then buy it. But I feel like it works the opposite way in professional wrestling. Like if you work for free, they just expect like you just don't charge. And then when you start charging, they're like, oh,
yeah,
no, thank you.
Then you stay home.
Yeah.
And I, at the time, I wasn't okay with staying home, and I did fall into that. But what I did was I took other bookings based on where I was working out here. So, like, I would work for, do you guys remember the Ultimate Wrestling Dynasty?
Yes. It was over in the Springfield area, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I worked for them because they were paying me. Right. So I would work, Mav paid me, but I'd work like other places essentially for free and then take those bookings on the other days just to make a payday. So just because they're not going to, and then you just stop taking the free ones and you start taking the paid bookings. Like that's how I thought of it.
As a manager, are there certain types of matches that you don't want to work or types of shows you don't want to be on?
Bar shows, Beyond. I work for Beyond every single week, but I will never manage at Beyond because the fans are right up at the ring. And I have this huge anxiety as Sidney where somebody's just going to reach over and grab my wig. And the gimmick, it's dead because the payoff is most times the wig.
Yeah.
So I won't manage for Drew, but I'll work there. I work there every week as a commentator. Deathmatch, like when they go out to the ring or when they go out to the floor, it's really hard because like, what am I doing? I'm essentially, no matter what I do, if they're fighting on the floor, the fans right in front of me are going to turn their attention to me. So what do I do? So I actually run to the back of the room and I just stand there. And when they go back into the ring, that's when I come back to ringside. I don't like the Falls Count Anywhere stuff. Yeah, and then like bar shows and shows without guardrails. I really hate shows without guardrails.
And do you feel like managers should dress one way only, a certain way, or based on your gimmick?
It's based on the gimmick.
Okay.
Yeah, like, I'll manage for Limitless Wrestling as Joey Eastman. It's the only I've managed 3 times in the last 6 years as Joey Eastman, and I'm just me when I go to the shows. Like I'll wear a blazer, a nice pair of pants, and a nice shirt. But Sidney, where he works everywhere, it's a different gimmick. So I dress for that gimmick, which is a lot more expensive than just my regular clothes.
Because aside from Louis Albano, who wore a Hawaiian shirt and just like white pants, I feel like almost every manager wears a form of suit.
Yeah.
Is there a reason behind it?
Because back in the day, and you actually touched on this at the beginning of the podcast, so the point of the manager, they were actually real managers. They were doing all the travel arrangements. They were getting the bookings for the wrestlers and negotiating with the promoters. I actually still talk once a week to one of the first pro wrestling managers, Bobby Davis, who Bobby Heenan got his whole gimmick from. And he was blown away when I wasn't doing that for wrestlers. He's like, and his question was, so what do you do? And I didn't know how to answer it because here's a guy that was a shoot manager and, I'm compared to him, I'm not anything. Like, so it was very weird, but that was the point of the manager. So that's where the suit came in, where they were wearing, business attire because they were businessmen.
Yeah, it's like a hockey manager wears a suit, or something to that effect.
Yep.
Exactly.
Why do you feel like that went away? Like, why don't you? I guess I could say, like, do you think you could ever bring that back? Do you think you could ever be like, hey, I'll take care of everything for you. You just have to show up and work. Do you think that can come back, and why do you feel it ever went away?
Because promoters stopped paying the wrestlers enough money to do that. You know, like when a wrestler is getting paid $25 a show, I'm not going to take any money from that, but I'm also not going to waste my time in doing all the arrangements for you. There are only, now 2 or 3 big wrestling companies that pay like that. And with social media now, they can do it all themselves. Like, they don't need a real manager. It would essentially be me taking advantage of a young kid and getting a cut of their bookings, which I would never do. So it would be shitty for someone to do that.
All right, so you come back to New England. Mm-hmm. What's your impression of the New England wrestling scene when you first came back?
So fucking clicky. It was the biggest clique. You had, in every locker room, you had the chaotic guys. And then there were the Bob Evans guys. And it was just certain cliques. And I noticed that I was sitting in the locker room, not with a clique, but I was in the middle of everything. And there was no shit talking. Like, everybody was super cool with each other, but they just sat together. You could tell that guys got booked certain places together, like everything was together with your friends.
Do you feel like that's because similar to when you're a kid in school, you make your friends and you just travel with your friends, and so because they all train with each other, that's all they know. And just like I think we've stated before, that wrestling is a heavily introverted business. Yep. And so everyone's like, I got my friends, I'm not looking to make any more, I really don't want to talk to anyone.
Yeah, it could very well be it. Like, I don't know. I'm not an introverted person at all. And I think that's sort of where I got some heat. Like, I'm not to myself, whereas most people in wrestling are. So I'm sitting here trying to talk to everybody and trying to network. And nobody was having it. Like, they were just like, hey, how are you? Like, the brother handshake and fuck that.
Limp fingers.
Yeah.
Nobody outright like nasty to you or anything?
Nobody was ever nasty to me. Most people were very nice to me and outgoing. I remember Sonny Goodspeed just being so outgoing. And then Mike Bennett, of all people, like, he was such a young guy, but he came over and I was sitting by myself and he made me feel very welcome in a Bob locker room. It was my first night there. But like, then you get into conversations with the other people that don't have friends. And that's tough. Like, Tony Spencer will come up and make friends with you, or you get stuck in a conversation with, say, Dan Tanaka about his championship belt collection. And it's like, oh, fuck. Like, I like Dan. Dan's a great guy. But, I don't know. I wanted to be one of the cool kids. And when I was so isolated, probably because I was outgoing and fucking insane, like, I wasn't. And it hurt my ego a little bit, because in Chicago, everybody knew me, everybody liked me. Coming out here, that shit wasn't happening.
And what was the first New England show you were booked on? It was
a Claremont show for Mav.
And who did you manage?
Mav.
Oh, okay.
Because he didn't trust me. He totally thought that if I fucked up, he could take control of the situation. Luckily, I didn't fuck up. And he kept booking me after that. But there was a moment on that show where the lights went out and they sent Heresy to the ring to kill time. And it was my first show in New England. In Chicago, that would have been me, being sent out. And I'm just watching it and I'm just like, God, I could help. But I wasn't even going to ask because nobody knew me. I was the new guy, and I had to remember that and how cliquey it was.
Is there ever a time that a wrestling promoter gave you feedback as to, this is what I saw, or this is what I didn't like, or whatever, and the back of your mind said, yeah, fuck you, I'm still doing what I want to do regardless of what you say?
Other places. I would do it probably other places. If it was wrong, like if the advice was wrong, but I can't remember a specific time where that happened. Like, promoters will never tell you, what you did and didn't wrong, because most of the time they don't watch the show. They're back there hobnobbing or, doing promoter things. So there are certain wrestlers that have given me advice over the years that I'd be like, nope, that's wrong. Like, that is completely incorrect. But in front of them, because they're vets, I won't do it in front of them anymore. But other places where it works, we would do that.
But like, let's say you work for I know you said you work for NCW.
Yeah.
And one of the boys there, and the talent pool there, but one of the boys there says, this, that, and the other thing about your managing, and then Top Rope, you come back and the boys there say one thing or another about your managing. Do you typically, for the people at NECW, are going to be like, yeah, fuck off, and then take the Top Ropes? Like, you know what I mean? Do you? Now
in my career, I'd probably tell them both to fuck off. Okay. Like, hey, I'm actually doing okay in wrestling. Like, leave me alone. Worry about your own shit. But that's the problem with wrestling, is you're getting so much advice you don't know, and it's most of the time opposite. So I would guess, like, at NCW I would do what they wanted, but then at Top Rope I would do what they want, and it's my job to remember what other wrestlers want, that we're all peers and not, work in the same VFW halls,
How long does it take before you start to sort of get like accepted in New England and people start liking you and the bookings start picking up?
I don't know what year I came out here. It's all a blur because I was really, really drunk, like, all the time. So, like, essentially, for that run, if you saw me, I was drunk and hit it very well. But I would say it took about a year where I was working everywhere. I even did a thing at Chaotic for a while with Sonny and Heresy. And
I kind of remember that was before I was.
Yeah, that was before you came in, because you would never book me. And then essentially a lot of it just stopped. Like, a lot of my bookings, I was working 2 to 3 times a week, and then it just stopped. And it was probably because I was a pain in the ass to deal with. Like, more than anything else, I was a piece of shit, and I became a piece of shit. I bought into my own hype. And I didn't even have hype, but in my head I had hype. So I became such a pain in the ass to work with, where by the end of the Joey Eastman thing, which is 2012, I was only working for, like, Lobster Man and Dr. Heresy. Those were, like, the only places I was. And then, like, Northern Maine and shit like that.
When you say pain in the ass, did you want more money? Were you just difficult to deal with?
Just difficult to deal with. I was always drunk, and I thought I was way more important than I was. And you have that moment in wrestling where you realize, this isn't what I'm going to do with my life and how I'm going to, take care of myself. Once I had that, there was that time, then I was, what you get now, essentially. But, there had to be that year where I was insufferable to talk to. Like, Facebook memories. I'll look at the Facebook memories of the shit I posted in that time, and I'm like, I fucking hate me. Like, I'm everything I hate about every wrestling person. That was me, just thinking I was so good and everything else, and I really wasn't.
Well, we talk about this with the girls a lot. A lot of times with girls in New England, since there were so few of them, would have a match, and no matter what they did, you got 9 guys. Oh, that was great! You're so good, blah blah blah. Yeah. And then they immediately get a huge head. Do you think that would apply to you?
Yeah. When I came out here, so I leave Chicago where everything I do is wrong, and they're just giving me advice and critiquing me. I come out here, no, that's great. That's really good. Like, you're really good. Like, everything you did was good. And it went to my head. Like, I wasn't used to it. Maybe that's it. Like, now that you say that, that could really be what happened, because I've never really gotten any negative feedback other than I steal heat, and that was Tarzan that said that.
He's not going to let me off the hook.
No, not at all. Because I wanted to work there at the time. That was my big thing. Like, I wasn't working Chaotic when you were there. And I'm like, why the fuck am I not there? Like, I'm cool with Tarzan. Like, we worked front row together. We traveled the roads with Panther Martin, man. Come on. And and I wasn't there. And, like, it was an ego thing, because at the time, Chaotic was the place. So for me, thinking I'm so good, and it's the whole ego thing again, I'm like, why am I not there? And that's why I give you shit about it now. But really, it worked out for the best because I was able to go other places and, sort of live in New England but travel other plathis.
The fact that, Tarzan thinks you steal heat, do you think that...
Two sons of bitches.
Then this is a genuine question, but do you think that other places think the same thing?
At this point, no. I would say, yeah, they did, but nobody ever told me. Like, you said that, but you never said it to me. And that I feel like that was a big thing, was they didn't tell me. If you would have told me, I would have certainly worked on it. And I realized, because you were 100% right, I was stealing heat. Like, the Joey Eastman gimmick, all I did was steal heat.
I got a tiny bit.
No. You were, and I'm gonna fuck with you about it. But you were 100% right. I stole heat, and it wasn't until I took like 6 months off, and I just started watching old matches, and I'm like, oh, I'm doing it wrong. And it was because I was probably shit-faced when doing it. And I don't want to use that as an excuse because I hate when people use any sort of impairment as an excuse. It's not an excuse. No, I sucked. And I really, the biggest effort that I've made with Sidney is to never take heat. Like, to do everything right. And I feel in 6 years that, I've done that now.
All right, so I want to jump into the art of a manager. We kind of got a lot of your background and kind of how you got in and how the ball started rolling. So you got to New England, you finally got the ball rolling after dealing with Mav, and it just slowly snowballed. So let's talk about the art of a manager, because that's originally what this podcast is supposed to be about, or this episode. So what do you feel the manager's role is in a professional wrestling match?
To add entertainment where there is no entertainment. Pro wrestling's entertainment. That's the manager's job. Unless you're the shoot manager like Bobby Davis, which doesn't exist anymore, you are essentially, you go to a really fancy restaurant, a steak restaurant, and you get the biggest filet mignon that they have. You get these great potatoes, and then you get buttered corn. I'm buttered corn. You're always going to eat the corn, and you're not going to hate the corn, but it's not why you go there. I'm not the star. I'm just added value to a show.
Well, also a lot of times traditionally managers were there for a guy who couldn't talk.
Yeah.
Or a guy who really needed to get heat but couldn't really do it on his own.
Yep. That's the entertainment part, though.
But do you think that's not as prevalent as it used to be?
No.
Like, it seems like now it's like, if you can't talk, you almost, what's the point of giving him a manager? We're never going to sell. He's never going to make big money in the long run if he can't talk.
Yeah.
So do you think that's almost hurt?
Yeah, I think putting me with guys that can't talk just because they can't talk and they want me to talk for them, it's a recipe for failure. And I look at Robo as the biggest. Like, Robo can't talk, and they put me with Robo, and it's like, well, if I'm doing all the talking for you, what happens when you go work 20 minutes down the road? Are they going to book me too? No, like, it's not. Don't book me with a guy that can't talk just to talk for them. Book me as added value to a package. The entertainment aspect. It's just going to hurt people. Like, it's only going to hurt that guy if they're having me talk, and then when it's time for him to talk, he can't do it anyways. Like, what's the point of me being there?
Do you feel like promoters should start booking managers? If you like you just said, do you feel like if they have a talent, or I say all promoters should kind of get on the same page. Do you feel like someone like Robo, they should book you and him similar to like you would a tag team?
Yeah.
Like you're a package deal and you should just go everywhere with each other.
Yes, because I get more bookings. And no, if you want to help the talent, then you book them. Then you book that package. That way we can work together. But if I'm working with a dude talking for him once every other month, it's doing neither one of us good, other than we're stealing the promoter's money. Like, that's it.
Well, I think it would add some value to a guy who's just starting, because the manager can kind of show him how to generate heat, how to talk, how to work. But I don't know if every guy is looking at that and actually even paying attention to what you're doing when you're managing them, where they might not even be learning a goddamn thing.
This is such a great. I can actually give you an example of this happening. So I was brought in 2 years ago for Top Rope Promotions, and I was managing 2 kids who, at the time, they had a combined 8 matches between them. It's Cesar Leo and Travis Gillette. And over time, Travis Gillette is working. Like, he's listening to what I say. Cesar Leo's, it's not really coming along for him. So, we're filming on a Saturday, September 14th. Tonight I'm in Brockton for their big last match. They did the split. Travis is ready to go. Cesar Leo looks like $1 million, but I don't think he's ready. He's still not able to really cut that great promo. It's a lot of cliches and things it's a lot of crutches. But Travis, I feel, is ready to go off on his own. And that's what Top Rope did, though. They gave me 2 green kids and let me, work with them. And we worked 4 to 5 times a month at some points. And they've gotten so much better. So that's where a manager's really good. If the manager's good. Yeah. Like, if you just put him with some other guy that's not very good, then the 2 kids aren't going to get better. Like, for Top Rope, I was an investment in 2 of their students. And I realized that. And I'm happy with it.
All right. So what would you say your mindset would be? You get placed with a person. So you get booked on a show and it's, hey, you're going to be with Robo. And you have to cut a promo. Done. There's no storyline. There's no nothing. What is a manager's mindset when you know you have to go out there? Like, what's your frame of mind? For that scenario where there's really no direction for it, it's generic promo B. I have 3 or 4 good promos that I can go back to where I can insert the guy's name. And the promo is going to generate heat. They're going to know that Robo is the bad guy and that they should boo him and, be done with it. If there's direction, then, it's a much more refined promo. And you'll see me actually practicing the promo as opposed to, I don't know what I'm going to say. I'm just going to go out there and wing it, Do you feel that it is useful to have a manager with a babyface as opposed to a heel?
No. He's just a cheerleader at that point. Like, when I work babyface, I can't do anything. Like, I just stand there, I pound the mat and get into it. I am a cheerleader. Like, you can have the guy in the front row do that, and it's the same exact thing. You just have to tell the guy in the front row when to do it.
Do you feel managers should primarily just be with heels to help gain heat or sell them or anything like that?
Yeah, unless it's like, a big name, a big name manager, then that's completely different. But yeah, managers are heels. Like, let them work, with the manager as a heel.
Sometimes, not so much in like WWE or anything, but in indie companies, a guy as a student, they'll throw him out as a manager so he can get some experience just being in front of a live crowd. You think that's a good idea? No, or do you think that's a bad idea?
That is a very bad idea. Because now the crowd is going to say, oh, that manager's now wrestling. But the manager needs to know the timing of the match. He needs to be there for the right things. And if he's just a student that's learning to remember a spot, that's not an art. That's not wrestling. That's just a guy remembering when to trip someone.
So I just want to kind of jump in because we are in the discussion of the art of being a manager in New England. I have a couple fans that reached out to the Truth, Justice, and New England Pro Wrestling Way Facebook. And so I asked them what they would like to ask someone who's been in a manager role in New England wrestling. And so one of the first questions that was asked was from Jay Fortier. And what his question was is, do you feel that valets killed the manager business?
No. If there were good managers out there, they'd still get booked. Valets add just as much as managers. It's just something completely different. And there's a place for all of them in wrestling. There's a place for a girl to be a valet and a guy to. And why can't a guy be a valet? Like, I'm changing I am a valet now, okay? No, like, there's room for all of that, though. They didn't kill it. It's just that promoters started booking their friends as managers and the fans realized it sucked.
So what in his mind and what he saw was basically he believes that promoters feel that if they had to book Joey Eastman or if they had to book blonde big tits,
Yeah.
Oh, which one, they're gonna take? Yeah, Tarzan gets it. They're gonna take her over you, and he feels like that's more prevalent, which is what killed the good managers like yourself.
I disagree. The promoter's going to take who's going to come in cheaper. If she's going to write in with her boyfriend and work for free, then yeah, he's going to pick her. If I'm going to write in with my boyfriend, then he's going to pick me if I'm working for free. And if we both work for free, he'd use us both. That's just a promoter's mindset. Yeah, it doesn't come down to pretty girl or good manager. It comes down to money at the end of the day because we're an added expense that's not a match.
And so I have another question from another fan. His name is Adam Booker.
He actually bought some of my used gear.
Really?
Adam Booker, yeah. Yeah, he buys my underwear all the time. He's from Maine, right?
Yeah. He wants to know, have you ever heard of the hard cam?
Oh, I actually know what he's getting at here. It's not directed at me.
Yeah.
But, oh my God, managers with their backs to the hard camera. Holy shit. Like, I see it all the time. And that's when I know that, all right, he has no idea what he's doing, because that's like the first thing that a manager should know is keep your face on TV. Cam Zagami, actually, when he managed at Beyond, his first match, his back was to the hard cam the entire match. And he was turning around to the side where there were really no fans. During the heat, because the manager really only should turn and look at the crowd during the heat of the match. Otherwise, you're going to start stealing heat. So during the heat, Cam turns around, but turns to the side where there's no. So you have like 200 people on the other side looking at his face from across the ring, and just a camera and like 6 or 7 people to his back, and he turns around to do the manager, I'm gonna get heat, and there's nobody there. So yeah, the hard cam is very important for a manager or a wrestler or a referee, anyone.
All right, now I have another question. It's from Mike Dill. He wants to know, what's your favorite interaction with a fan? He's assured that it's going to be a heat-based reaction, but what would you say your favorite reaction would be as a pro wrestling manager? Crying, scared, whatever. I don't know. If I were to make a little kid cry, I'm going right out there after that match, and I'm giving them a free picture, a free t-shirt. Like, it's not my job to scare a kid or make a kid cry or make a human being cry. You come here to get away from that crap. The days of that kind of heat, like of calling the fat girl fat or what, yeah, don't do that. So it wouldn't be a heat-based reaction. I don't really have like a favorite fan interaction. Most of my fan interactions are very negative. One night I was attacked, and it was my fault. I said something in the ring and I was very young in my career, where I shouldn't have said it. And 2 guys jumped out of the crowd and, dumped nacho cheese in my hair and cut my pants. And they did this before the security could get there. Like, they box cutted my pants, which is really scary because like an inch later, Yeah, they're going into your thigh.
Yeah. But, so a lot of my interactions with fans are negative. I've had over a dozen fans try to fight me over the years, and nothing in the last 6 years though. And it's because I was getting the wrong heat and they were trying to fight me. Now it's a different kind of heat where they genuinely hate me, but I'm not going to cross that line and, get somebody to fight me.
And I'll continue with fan questions in a second, but I want you to elaborate on that. What's what do you mean the different types of heat?
So I can easily make you genuinely hate me and want to fight me by saying certain words. That I'm I don't want to say the actual words because then I'd probably be blackballed from wrestling, so I don't want to say it. But I can easily make a fan jump out of the crowd and try to fight me. Or I can get real wrestling heat and what I do is I make them think about why they're mad at me. Like, I'll do a lot of talking about your income, and that genuinely makes people mad, but they're not going to cross that line, But if I insult your girlfriend and call her a whore, like while she's sitting there with her kid, Now dad wants to fight me.
Yeah.
And that's not good. That's not because now those people are not going to buy a ticket to that promoter's next show. And instead of making the promoter money, I just cost them $60. So that's bad heat.
So you believe that? I feel like that sounds a little much like cheap heat.
Yeah.
And so you're not a big fan of cheap heat.
Oh, I was the king of cheap heat for so many years. And that I feel like that was a thing that sort of made what I did hokey. Like the Joey Eastman stuff was super hokey. And Sidney, while he looks like he would get all the cheap heat in the world, it's not really that cheap. Last night I went really cheap because it was like a bar crowd and that's what you did.
Yeah.
But no, like for a really good wrestling promotion, no, I stay away from the cheap heat stuff.
Okay.
Well, let me, on the flip side of that, there's been this recent trend of like fake heat where they boo, but they don't really, they're booing because they think that's what they're supposed to do now. Does that change how you approach things at all?
Oh, absolutely. Because I want them to really not like Sidney. So when they start doing that boo thing, no, don't boo me. Like, don't patronize me. I know what you're doing. And it sort of makes them step back, and now they're like, oh, wait, he's outsmarting us. Now we really have to boo him, and I really hate him. And that's when, it works.
Okay. And so Eric Wilson, another fan of the show, is asking, are there people who are disrespectful to managers because they're not seen as one of the boys? If so, will you name them?
No. Nobody's ever out here. And if they did, I would name them to their face. Like, hey, why are you being a dick?
Yeah.
But no, there's been no one that has disrespected me for being a manager and not being an actual wrestler.
And my final question, and I just want to state before I state this, thank you to all the fans who did chime in and piped in some questions for me to ask a manager in the New England wrestling scene. Please continue to give your feedback as it is extremely helpful to the podcast. Final question is from Robert LeBlanc. I think you know who he is.
That's Rob Tuttle.
It is.
Have you ever seen Rob Tuttle count like on the mat?
No.
Watch his legs. So when you see it, you can't unsee it. It's like FedEx. When you see the arrow in between the Fed and the X, like you can't unsee it. Rob Tuttle counting to 3 is the funniest thing ever. Like when he's doing, his legs go back and forth and it's like he's walking while he's laying down. And it's so entertaining. Okay, Rob Tuttle, go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't know that. Can you explain the proper way to bring... Okay. Rob, you got to work on your spelling, my man. Can you explain the proper way to bring heat to a match without overshadowing the match itself?
Yeah, it's essentially not trying to be the star. You have to remember as a manager, you're not the star. If you want to be the star, be a fucking wrestler. It's being able to step back and knowing when to get your heat. And that's during the heat of the match. It's knowing your spots as opposed to where the wrestlers are. You are 3% of that match, and then the workers are the 97%. And unless it's like an angle or some shit like that. But yeah, just knowing you're not the star, you won't get heat.
All right, I got some questions. Some of them about just managing in general. Some are specific to you. Do you think the manager should have any input into the match beyond his own spots?
If you know that something's right, I feel like I've managed a few matches at this point, and I've seen a few wrestling matches. So if I know, based on just what they're calling, if something's wrong, maybe I'll pipe in. But for the most part, I don't do that unless it involves me. But if there's something that's clearly not going to work, I will speak up.
Have you ever had to ixnay a spot, be like, no, I'm not going to do that?
Yeah. Oh, many times. It's essentially when they want me to bump too early. Not too early in the match, but too early in whatever angle that we're doing. A lot of times it'll be like a spot show or something like that, and we'll bump the manager. No. I don't want to, I'm saving my bumps for other places. I will still be the butt of the joke or get me down to my underwear or something like that. But an actual bump, that's what the fans want to see from me. They want to see me get hurt, so we don't do that until it's time.
Have you ever had anyone in the wrestling business, in the middle of them calling their matches, you suggest something and them tell you like almost aggressively,
Yeah,
or in their own way, like stay the fuck out of it. Or
yeah, Cabana did that to me.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, Cabana.
Really?
Yeah. So Cabana really helped me out in my younger career, but there have been, and I think it's because, you know, he remembers me years and years ago. But yeah, he was like super aggressive in the match with Troy Nelson to me at one point, and I'm like, all right, you're the vet, you know, like you made money and I just shut up, you know. But that's just Cabana. But yeah, that would be the one that comes to the top of my mind.
You haven't had anyone else that?
No, like everybody's super cool and really respects my input in their matches. So, you know, or like, yeah, they don't care.
Do you feel like it's because Cabana just, like you said, he kind of made some money in the business and made a life out of it? Do you feel like he just has that mindset of like, you, regardless of who you are, you're not in my spot, so you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, so shut your mouth?
I don't think he would have said that to any other manager the way he said it to me, because we have more of a personal relationship. It's like a big brother, little brother thing. Like, Joey, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know. We're doing it like this. Whereas if it were another manager that he didn't know, he'd be like, well, you know that. But I feel like because it was me. But I hadn't seen Cabana in many years up to that. So for him to just snap like that, I'm like, all right, fuck you.
Yeah.
You know, like it was sort of, you know, that. Yeah, it was kind of shitty, but I get it. I know why it happened, and you know, shit like that.
Okay, in your opinion, a match with a manager, how much of a difference can they make from that match being a good match to a match being a great match?
A lot. I mean, you know, I really think that if what the manager's doing is good, it can really help elevate that, because a lot of times the crowd takes a match from a good match to a great match. So there have been many instances where the crowd has been so hot that it's taken a match to another level. And the manager is just out there doing that, passing the heat along. So I think that it is very possible for a manager to make a good match a great match. Plus with the bumps, and it's also like relaying information. You know, like if something's changing, it's my job to let the boys know, like, hey, this is going on. Let's try to change it to this here. And now, unfortunately, in wrestling, a lot of guys can't do that. Like, they can't call it on the fly anymore. But, you know, I know at Limitless a couple of weeks ago, there was a guy that dislocated his elbow in the match, and it's my job to, you know, let everybody know so that they could work around it and come up with a different spot for the finish, because now that guy was supposed to take the finish and he's out. So it definitely helped. I wouldn't call it a great match, though.
Okay. Have you ever had someone come back after a match not being good and like lay the blame on you?
Oh yeah, happens all the time.
Really?
Yeah, all the time. You know, Ring of Honor. I did the Ring of Honor tryout, and it was a 6-man tag, and the match was terrible.
Who were the participants in this match?
I managed Anthony Green, Brad Hollister, and some other guy.
I know what you're talking about. I saw a clip of this.
Against Cheeseburger and 2 other guys. And like the match went over time, and it wasn't good. And you know, I'm just like, I said, just put the heat on me. I don't need a job. Just put the heat on me. And the heat was put on me. And I actually got yelled at by Ian Riccoboni for the match going over time. They put the heat on me, and I'm like, yeah, that's fine. He did say, which, God, if this were anywhere else, I would have said something, but it was his house. But he did say to me that I didn't get my entrance video, and I ruined a family moment. He said that I ruined his family moment because his family came to see his new entrance video. They drove up from Pennsylvania. So in my head,
what?
Yeah. And this is in front of the locker room. So he yelling at me and dressing me down in front of the locker room, which you should never do. But then just saying that I will never forget I ruined a family moment. And I'm like,
the most insane thing I've ever heard.
And I could just tell that he's young, and I'm like, all right, I'll take it. I haven't had a good one of these in many years. I'll take it. So yeah, like it was bad and it was my fault. But I ruined a family moment.
I've never heard such a thing.
So they had a new entrance video for Ian Reichel, the announcer. The announcer had a new entrance. The announcer guy, so he had a new entrance, which is fine. And yeah, because the match went long, he didn't get his entrance video that his wife and son drove up from Pennsylvania to Lowell, Massachusetts to see. His entrance.
You're making this up.
No, I'm not making it. I ruined a family moment, and I feel bad. Ian, I'm sorry I ruined the family moment.
Just watch the fucking DVD.
Hey, no, I ruined it. I ruined.
You specifically, not anybody else.
No one else. No. And they also handed me a dead mic at the beginning of the match, which I forgot to mention. So I'm going to cut my promo, and it's a dead microphone. There were 2 microphones there. And Bobby Cruz, who was super supportive and hey, there's going to be 2 microphones out there. I couldn't see because it was dark and I had my sunglasses on. They gave me the wrong mic. So I'm walking around like this, and they're not giving me the other mic. So if that's what caused it to go over time, I'm completely sorry, but I ruined a family moment that he'll probably never get back.
All right. So you think a manager and a wrestler have to have chemistry or like each other for it to work?
Yeah. There's been many guys where it just doesn't work. So I've managed 126 guys in 16 years. It's fucking crazy how many people I've managed. And there are people I can say without a shadow of a doubt, Keith Walker is one of the best guys I've ever managed because we were true friends and we had chemistry. He's a big, jacked up football playing meathead. And then there was me. We had so much chemistry. Scott Guerin, Max Smashmaster, we have chemistry together. Flex Rumble Crunch, Sean Burke, we have great chemistry. There are many guys. And then there are guys that Travis Gillette and Cesar Leo, it's very forced from me. I like working with them. I think what we do is good. It doesn't feel as natural working with them than it does, Scott, Sean, Keith. Those guys are natural.
And has there ever been no, I'm not managing that guy. I don't want to manage him, or vice versa. No, fuck Joey Eastman. He's not going to be my manager.
Yes, but I'm trying to remember the scenario. It was at UFO, and they wanted me to manage someone, and I didn't flat out say no, but Anthony Green was standing there, and I just see him out of the corner of my eye, and I'm like, what about him? Let me manage him. Let me get some heat on him. And this is before retrosexual and all that. And they changed it. But I remember I didn't say it, but I didn't want to work with the guy that I was supposed to manage. And it wasn't Brian Privatera because I think that, I would have had some fun with him. I just don't remember who I was supposed to manage that night. But I'm like, I got to do anything to get out of this. I can't manage him. But there have been probably a few times where I'm like, I'm not doing that. Not managing him.
What's the reason why you or any manager would ever not want to manage someone? As a manager mindset, what would be your reason other than personal dislike?
They do stupid shit in the ring. They'll want that personality where, oh, brother, you gotta go and you're gonna do this and I'm the vet, and I'm like, no, you're not. You fucking work in a VFW hall once a month. Stop it. That would be my big thing to say. No, I don't really want to work with you, but I'll try to work with everybody at least once. And if there's no chemistry, what I'll do is I'll tell that person, hey, it's not why don't you do this? And I'll manage this guy here. And I'll talk to the promoter about it too. It's not like I'm shady about it. I'm going to tell both parties, it's just not good. And let them know.
And we touched upon it earlier, but do you think there was ever a show that generally was hurt by too many managers being on it?
I'm sure. With involving me?
Yeah, that you were on.
There had to have been. I just probably was too stupid to notice it. Like I didn't notice that, but I'm sure that there had to be a billion shows where all the managers are doing the same shit. And at that point, yeah, every manager is useless and you only need one. And Sean Gorman was 100% right.
Now, why is that? Because, like any business in the world, you could run a show and have like 7 talent, agents out there who represent each talent in the show. So in my mind, if you look at the gimmick, you could run a wrestling show. It's like, that's a wrestler and that's his manager who takes care of him. And, Sean Gorman's this guy's manager who takes care of him. So in my opinion, having multiple managers doesn't so much hurt the show, but why would you both feel like it kind of, well, I don't know if you do, Tarzan, I'm sorry, but why would you feel like it would hurt the show having more than one manager where logically it's possible in any real world scenario?
If the manager, so let's say manager 1 goes out there, this town sucks. The cutoff is grabbing the boot. The finish spot is the manager hops up after a babyface hits 2 and then jumps down. And then the heel goes over. The next match, the exact same thing is said and the exact same thing happens. Now it exposes it to the fans. And the fans are like, that guy just said that. That guy just did that. They just did the exact same thing. If the managers are all doing the exact same thing, it only hurts the show. If they are different if the managers are working together backstage, now you could get something out of it. But if they're just going out there doing the same shit, then it sucks.
Well, one thing that we always talk about with wrestlers, and this is a lost attribute, I guess, for wrestlers nowadays, is no one watches the show. Mm-hmm. And so back in the day when I was taught by Hollow and Malonis and all them, and back in the old Chaotic days when I was wrestling, they were always saying, watch the show. Because if you have something planned and you didn't get a chance to coordinate with one another and you see it, or you see 6 schoolboys that night, change your fucking schoolboy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? How is that not a thing? Is it the same thing for managers? Do you guys not watch the show and go, oh, okay, they're doing the boot grab gimmick, let's change ours?
So what I do is, if there's another manager on the show, I'm going to ask him what he's wearing. So I'm not wearing, and with Sidney, I don't have to worry about any of that.
No way.
No. So I know that that's not going to happen. But I'm going to ask, hey, in your promo, are you cutting a promo? What are you saying? What are you doing for the cutoff, or if you're involved in it? What are you doing here? And then when it's time for me to call my shit, I'm not going to do that. If he's doing the cutoff, maybe I'll tell the other manager, hey, I'll do the finish in my match. I'll get involved there. So that way we're not interfering at the same time and doing the same shit.
And so for me, that kind of contradicts, what was said earlier is that, every show would be good with just one manager, because if you're willing to coordinate with another manager and say, oh, we're not going to do the same shtick, then how can it hurt a show? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you're right. I guess what I was trying to say is, if they are doing the same things, it's going to hurt. If they are working together, but managers don't work together. No, I shouldn't say that, because most of us try to. If they're working together, then there's room for more than one. If they're doing the same shit, then there's only room for one guy. And it's the guy that's on first.
So, and to put yourself in this little area here, do you watch your shows? Do you watch the shows as they go before your time is up to see if there are other managers on the show? Do you watch to see what they've done?
No, I ask them.
Okay.
Yeah, I said, I'll ask the manager, hey, what are you doing? So that way, when it's time for me to call my shit, I'm not even, in the same area as they are.
Would you do the same for a valet?
Yeah,
Say there's
of course.
You, Marsha McNeil, and I don't know, Stephanie the ref. She happens to be a valet that day.
Yep. Stephanie would outwork me. She's fucking great.
Okay, that one got me.
No, of course. If there's somebody on the outside, then yeah, I'm going to ask them, hey, what are you doing? So I'm not doing what you're doing. if we're not doing that, then there's only room for the manager or valet that's on the show before anyone else.
All right, good. So we can clarify that having multiple managers isn't necessarily a bad thing if the managers are willing to work together and not repeat the same move.
Yeah.
However, if no one works together and it looks to be the repeat shit show, then probably best to just have one and done.
Yeah, me and Stokely Hathaway and I, up at Limitless, we would sit there and we'd actually we'd cut the promos on each other before we went to the ring, so that way we wouldn't even say, what the other person was saying. And it was so good because it was so different. And there was plenty of room for both of us on the show.
Any of the girls ever asked, like, hey, what should I do? Or did I do the right thing?
No.
These valets, they just don't give a fuck.
In New England, Sammy Lane actually asks every time I was on a Chaotic show, she would ask me for feedback and advice. And she genuinely wanted that feedback. Yeah, for the most part, the valets, and there aren't a lot of valets in New England right now for some reason. I can't think of that many, but no, they don't talk to me.
Do you think they depend heavily on the fact that they have, pretty faces, boobs, an attractive look to them? Because you could say it over and over again, sex sells. And so people like to see the female body out there. And so do you feel that they lean on that more than they do their, any kind of managing ability?
Yes. But they don't know that. They think that they're going out and, I'm here.
They're working as hard as you would.
Yeah. They're not. And it's completely different. So, and that's the big thing is, just because it's not what I do doesn't mean it's not good. There are very good valets in wrestling. And, I always go back to a young lady named Val Malone, who you've probably never heard of, but it's Silas Young's wife. She's like Sherry Martel good. She's very, very just big and she's a manager, But in New England, there isn't anyone to compare it to. There aren't any valets.
All right. We're going to get into a manager's game in a minute, but I had two more questions. These are more touching on some of the reasons I don't, for the most part, like independent wrestling managers a lot. The overuse of promos. I feel like some of these guys, they think they're so clever and they crack their friends up at home. So I'm going to get on the mic every show, tell my hilarious jokes, even though it has no relevance to the match and isn't really adding anything.
If my name is not on on the format sheet for a promo, you are not getting a promo out of me. That's sort of what people want. I'm a heel. So if I give the people what they want, I'm not a heel, I'm a babyface. So you are 100% right with guys that just come out and they're funny. Funny isn't
every show.
Every time it's the same thing. And Sidney has sort of gotten into, everywhere I go, I have to cut a promo. And I've sort of stopped cutting promos now because everybody just wants to quiet down and all that. So I'm not doing it. If they want me to cut a promo, it's not going to be that quiet down shtick that I did. It's going to be something completely different. So that way they like me or dislike me for a different reason.
Sometimes I think that's on the booker, the promoter. They don't even think twice about the manager. They don't give a fuck. So they just let him.
Yeah, grab the mic.
Yeah.
If the place is professional, there's a run sheet out back that will say who's cutting a promo. And most of the time it's don't cut a promo if your name is not on this sheet. If my name's not on that sheet, I'm not even asking. Nope, I'm good. I don't have to. I can go out and just work. It's fine.
And another thing, and sometimes this isn't really the fault of the manager, but the feud is overtaken by the manager sometimes.
By the babyface trying to get the manager instead of the...
Yes.
Yeah, I don't get it. Tonight at Top Rope, the whole shtick of the match is if Travis wins, he gets 5 minutes alone with me.
Yeah.
Well, what about Caesar? What
does he get?
Yeah, what does he get? And that's not on the manager. That's how they're promoting the match. The story should be Travis is mad at Caesar for not going with Travis and turning on him and being with me. Why are you mad at me? I'm not doing anything. But that's not the story that they wanted to tell. So It's not on me.
I don't know if you ever paid attention to Triple W when it was around.
No.
I thought part of their downfall was it became Nicky Rock's feuding with Sean Gorman. And I think highly of Sean Gorman, but at that point, who's really buying a ticket to see the wrestler feuding with this manager that even any idiot can see she can kick his ass? He's not representing anyone that the fans give a shit about. So eventually it's like, to me, it's like, who cares?
Nobody buys a ticket to see me. If that promoter, I don't know who the promoter was, but if that promoter thought that people would buy a ticket to see a manager as the special attraction, is Triple W still in business anymore?
No.
Exactly.
And to play off what you just said is no one's buying a ticket to see you. I always, and maybe I'm wrong, but I've always assumed that the idea was when I book someone there to generate the amount of tickets to justify paying you. Mm-hmm. So what's the justification of paying a manager?
I still don't know. No. No, you're absolutely right. It's added value at that. And that's sort of what Sidney is. Like, you know, he's added value. Nobody's going to be upset, but you see Sidney on a poster, you're like, I like that guy. Like, he's an asshole. Like, you know, I know him. And that's sort of why I get booked places.
Like, you can do angles revolving around a manager sometimes, but I almost think it's like it overtakes it. Like, I think the Paul Heyman Jim Cornette was a great example of an angle around managers as would, but that was Jim Cornette versus Paul Heyman. They're both managers, so that I could see more than a wrestler versus a manager.
So let me ask you this: how many good active managers are there on the indies right now that are actually working?
Julian, you're more
you. I'm not even kidding. Like
I can't think of any other than you right now.
That was going to be my question, and you can, I guess, answer all of this at once. That was going to be my thing. Is like, why do you feel it's become a dying art?
It's not. There are so many managers in indie wrestling, but there aren't any good ones. So there are no managers that are going to go out and travel. Like, there's not that one. It was called homesteading back in the day, where they, you know, would stay in one area. So like in New England, I would be homesteading up here, and there are no other good seasoned managers. So for you with the Jim Cornette, Paul Heyman, who would be my Cornette or who would be my Heyman? Like, there's no one, because either A, I have to really tone it down to bring the other person up to a new level, or I'm just going to steamroll this person and then the angle has nothing. So no matter what, it's going to expose the other manager, and you don't want to do that. But yeah, it's not a dying art. It's just that it's an expense a lot of promoters don't want. So you could take your buddy, oh, he's funny at the bar, throw him out there. Whereas, you know, me, I'm getting flown out still to this day to do Sidney all over the country. And they see this gimmick, like it's a real gimmick, like he's a real person. And it's just so different than your buddy doing it. So in that situation with the Cornette Heyman, I would probably say no. If somebody presented that to me, I'm like, if I can genuinely help the other manager, yeah, let's do it. But it's most likely not going to happen.
All right, so we're going to play a manager's game. We're going to name some managers associated with New England. Get your opinion on them.
Mm-hmm. Love this.
Julian, you're going to have to fill me in on more, because there's probably been some new ones added since I really have been out of the business. But we're going to start with the rock god, Adam Barasano.
You booked him, right? So he must never steal heat, right? He must be fucking awesome. No, he like Adam Barasano on social media is fucking whiny and all over the place. Adam Barasano in person is like one of my favorite people to talk to and text with. Like, I like him. As a manager, I always thought he was green. I always thought he didn't really seem comfortable with what he was doing, but I never saw, I never really saw him for an extended period of time.
How would you feel about the valet/managers, the Platinum Honeys?
So that's a tough one, because they're getting more and more involved. I think that they're getting they're overshadowing AG at some levels, and they've got to tone it down. They being Evie needs to tone it down. The other one, she needs to bring it up. Like you would think that it would offset, but it really doesn't. Yeah. So yeah.
That's always been my feedback for Angel Sinclair the most.
Bring it up.
I said you gotta turn your volume up because she's overshadowing you. I never really paid attention to the whole situation with her overshadowing AG, but she's definitely overshadowing her, so they don't even out.
The combination is like, here's where I noticed it. There was a show that didn't have AG and the Honeys. It was just AG, and people were sad that they didn't have the Honeys. And maybe they were sad because they're two attractive women, or maybe they were sad because they wanted the Honeys. So is that now taking away from AG? Are they overshadowing? And does AG not need to switch it up, but maybe change what he's doing with it?
All right. Not everyone's going to be familiar with this name, but you should know. From Front Row Wrestling, Steve Marriott.
Oh, my God. My first night at Front Row Wrestling, Claremont, he informed me that he was the top manager in the company. And I'm just like,
were there any other managers?
There was Vanity Vixen. No, there was another manager. I don't remember who it was though, but he let me know that he was the top manager, and he was there. But I think that he was happy being there. Like he was happy at Front Row Wrestling. He never wanted to do anything. Me, I didn't want to stay just at Front Row Wrestling. I wanted to go other places. So we were just very different.
And to touch upon the name you just mentioned, Vanity Vixen.
She's a bit of a slash wrestler manager.
Yeah. But with Amato, I guess the package works. Yeah, it works. Like, they've just been around for so long now that, you expect them to be there. I think as a valet, I don't know, she maybe cover up a little more. Like I'm really big on, now that I'm a dad, like bringing my kid to a show and there's like a half naked girl out there. I'm like, come on, cover up. Like, stop it. So maybe, just cover up a little bit, I guess.
Marshall McNeil.
Marshall McNeil, one of everyone's favorite people, right? Like if I say the name, you're nodding right now. Like everybody loves Marshall McNeil, including the fans. There was never any real heat. Like he never generated and elicited a real reaction from the crowd. It was always the I'm going to play along with you heat. That was the only thing about Marshall. I love Marshall. I did a gay wedding with Marshall. Like I freaking love the dude. And I would do anything with Marshall. But that was my only thing about him was like it's that play along heat. He wasn't able to make people really mad at him.
In his time with now WWE superstar Mike Kanellis, Bob Evans.
He was playing the role of a wrestling manager. Like you knew that Bob wasn't. He was Mickey from Rocky.
Yeah,
like that was what he was doing. I guess because he knows so much, I guess he's good. I genuinely never really saw it, so I don't know, but. There's a reason. There's probably a reason why they put him with Maria and not Bob on TV.
Sorry, I know we were going back.
A lot of reasons for that.
I like Bob. Like, Bob's a Stern fan, so like we'll make a lot of Stern references.
Yeah.
I like Bob.
I hear Bob's just basic.
I heard that.
But the other guy, I don't know if he was around, and the reason why I'm mentioning it, he had to have been around because when I was like kind of like a backyard and almost untrained, he managed me. John Rodeo.
I've never worked a show with him. He's been at shows that I've been on, but he's never managed, so I've never seen him work. Little much, just as a person, like he's a little. Like that smiley thing, like I like him, I like talking to him, but small doses, and maybe that's just me as a human being, like, with everyone, like small doses are great, but I've never seen him manage, so I don't know.
All right, you mentioned her earlier, Sami Lane.
Sami Lane, I think is good. Like for a valet, I think Sami Lane, she's the only valet in New England, so she's probably the best valet in New England right now.
'Cause I figured that's where you're going with that.
Yeah.
I think he's now a manager, not a wrestler anymore. Triple-licious.
He's an active wrestler now.
He is? All right, sorry.
He is a manager as well, though.
I like the gimmick a lot. Yeah, when I see him, he stands out from everybody else because it's so different. It's that like gangster type thing. I'm like, every time I see him, my eyes are drawn to him because it's something so different that other people than what anyone else is doing.
And to play on that, do you feel that being a professional wrestler as well as a manager can affect your managing ability because you almost want to steal the heat because you want to be the center of attention?
Yeah. You want to be the center of attention so you can easily take away, but you're also smart enough not to.
So you think it's personal choice?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think in Tripp's case, he doesn't take away from Casanova like at all.
I never feel that either.
He's really, really good.
I have a guy who actually is a ref, but also does some managing here and there. Rich Bass.
Yeah, I've seen clips of Rich Bass, and we both used a shoe at the time, and you can tell I genuinely respect someone when I'll be the one to say I'm not going to do that anymore, and I genuinely like Rich, and I think that if he would just get out other places, but everybody knows him as a ref, so now if he starts managing, the refager.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we'll end the game with probably other than yourself, probably the most known manager from the New England area would be Sean Gorman.
He's a good promo. Like, I've never really interacted with him. Like, we had one conversation and that was it. As a manager, I think he's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with Gorman. So yeah, he's good. He was very good. I wish he would manage more. Like, he probably never will, but I wish he would. And I thank him for not, because now I have all the business. So thank you.
All right. We could probably go for hours and hours.
Oh my God. I could do. Well, hold on. I got to take my kid to the park. All right. So I got to meet my kid at the park here.
So, I do want to thank you for being on the show. It was a pleasure.
Thank you guys. This has been fun. Like, I don't know. I hope I didn't shit on too many people.
Well, we're not done yet.
We're not done.
Awesome. Let's go.
We're heading into the wrap up as our favorite segment.
I text Julian, we should have opened with Who I Hate because it could have taken up the entire show.
Yeah, but then everybody might have tuned out after you. You know what time it is, Julian?
Yes, I do.
Time for the Fantastic Four.
The Fantastic Four is a series of 4 questions that we ask all of our guests, and you being an avid listener, Joey Eastman, I know that you know this.
Oh, yeah.
So the first question we're going to lead right out is, with your entire dealings in professional wrestling as a manager, what would you say you are most proud of?
The fact that I'm still doing it and able to travel after all this time, and just the fact that I did it once. Like, I'd be super proud if I just did that one show in Waukesha, Wisconsin, to say I did it just to be involved. And, I'm proud of all the people I've met and even helped out.
All right, question 2. All your dealings in professional wrestling, what would you say is your biggest regret?
My mouth. I know that I have said things years ago that cost me a lot of bookings. I've insulted people personally. I have hurt feelings, and I'm sorry, but I can't take back anything that I did 10 years ago. So fuck it. Like, it happened. I'm sorry, but it would definitely be my mouth. Like, just always going.
Takes a lot to change an image in professional wrestling. Your first impression of everyone is kind of what sticks with you forever. So
yeah.
In today's society, it seems like there's no room for atonement anymore.
No, and you know what? If they don't like me, fuck them. Like, I'm still gonna go out there and work. I don't care if I never get booked again after this podcast. That means I get to sit at home and I get to watch TV and hang out with my family on the couch. That's perfect.
That's one of the things that helped me separate from the bullshit in wrestling was everyone makes everything a big deal and over exaggerates every situation. But at the end, if wrestling goes away, I still have Susanna, Claudia, a place to live, things to do, and a life to live. Like, I still have a life outside of it. So
I don't have to go to a VFW hall and watch dudes play fight in their underwear. I'm fucking good.
Yeah,
you know,
it's okay.
like it's weird. Wrestling is this weird drug that like I always say I don't need it, but my God, I need it. But then like I don't want it, and then I do want. Yeah, fuck.
That's why I'm 300 pounds and still struggling whether I want to come back to wrestling or not.
You need to, as a 300-pounder, though.
I keep being told that.
Yes. Why? You don't need abs.
Yes, I do.
I'll manage you.
Okay.
All right. Done.
I don't. Seriously, don't threaten.
I would do it in a second. I would do it in a second.
You gotta find gear that fits. All right, so we're gonna jump to the third question. It's my favorite question. Break out the list, Mr. Eastman. With all your dealings in professional wrestling as a manager, who would you say you hate or strongly dislike the most, or even annoys you, and will you name them?
I will name every one of them. You see a list.
Lord.
Yeah, there's a list. So there's one kid, Sean Hubbard, who you guys don't know. He's a wannabe promoter out in the Midwest area. He's a piece of shit and owes people a lot of money. Yeah, he actually just blamed me. He said he ran a show, canceled it the day of, saying that I rented him the ring. I live in New Hampshire. He lives in Chicago. Saying that I rented the ring and sent him a fake picture of a car overturned. Like the ring truck overturned. And he did this to essentially pocket the pre-sale money. But he blamed me for it, which I'm like, thank you. Like, that's kind of cool that you would do that. I hate Just Incredible. I will not hate. I strongly dislike Just Incredible. There was an episode in 2005 where I booked him for Totally Tool Wrestling as Aldo Montoya. And it was, I wanted Aldo. I don't want Just Incredible. I want Aldo Montoya. And he shows up with a jockstrap to wear on his head. He said that he had the gear and didn't. I didn't pay him that night. Fast forward to December where he gets drunk and runs in the ring and cuts a promo. What people don't know is the next day, Just Incredible and I talked for an hour after that. And he apologized. He was sorry. And then he does an interview saying that it was the inexperience of the booker and promoter, who would have been myself and Jeremy Leary. And I'm like, fuck you. Like, you were drunk and ran in the ring. I never had on the sheet that he would do a promo, ever. And when he asked me about a promo, he's like, hey, do you have a blade for my promo? And I see that he's clearly fucked up. I'm like, oh, there's no promo. And you don't need a blade. You're okay. After match one, he just runs in the ring.
Wait, so it's the inexperience. Him getting drunk and cutting a shoot
because
promo.
I didn't know how to turn that into a work. Yeah, that's what he said, was like, I didn't know how to work, and that guys used to get drunk and do it all the time. And if I knew how to work, then I could have worked with it.
He's fucking out of his mind.
Yeah.
You made it clear you wanted Aldo Montoya. You made that crystal clear.
Crystal clear. In every conversation that I had, I wanted Aldo, and I didn't pay him for that. I don't really like Sheldon.
Sheldon Goldberg.
Former
guest on Truth, Justice in the New England Pro Wrestling Way.
It's weird because I've never had a real interaction with Sheldon. There was the thing when I first moved out here that I mentioned earlier, but then also I was doing, I was going to get the NWA in New England, and it was going to be fucking, it was going to be fun. Like I was going to, run, it was going to be every other week that we would run. Like I was putting some money into it, and Sheldon called up Dave Marquez and said that Tony Rumble was the NWA New England and that I shouldn't be able to have that. And I know it was Sheldon because Dave told me it was Sheldon. So if he ever tries to say no, Dave Marquez is the one that told me it was Sheldon. So one of them are lying. But yeah, so we were going to do something really cool and probably lose a lot of money, and it would have lasted maybe a year. But Sheldon put the kibosh on it. It became NWA Liberty States at that point. At that point, my heart was not in it. I didn't want to even deal with wrestling at that point. We did it for a while, made a few bucks, and I was so far removed from the NWA at that point.
Before you get to the next name,
Yep.
we had Todd Sopel on the show, and he said that he cut ties with you, with not you specifically, but with doing it.
Yeah, he did.
That is true.
Yeah, that is
Okay.
100% true. And by the way, I never owned I've never owned a wrestling company.
Gotcha.
I never will. I'll never run a wrestling show.
Because you're inexperienced as a booker.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing.
Were you? Have you ever been a money mark?
No.
Okay.
I've run 4 shows.
You can't work around a guy getting shit faced.
I can't do it. I don't know what I'm doing. But I've run 4 shows in 16 years, 3 of those shows being Totally Tool Wrestling, which I still get a check for quarterly from Smart Mark Video. So I haven't run a show in 11 years, and I still get money from those shows. So fuck you. All right. Next guy is Guy Medeiros.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
He owes me $40. So he Facebook messages me, and it was in a moment of weakness for me where nobody was home, and it was about 8:00 at night, and he gives me this sob story about how his electricity is going to get shut off. I haven't talked to this guy in years, so right away I'm like, oh fuck, man, I can help out. It's $40. Pay me back next week. I'll let anybody borrow money, but I always get a firm date of when you're going to pay me back. And he's like, I'll pay you back on Tuesday. Never paid me back. So fuck Guy Medeiros. And it was probably on drugs, and I hope it was what...
Didn't he Facebook message you for the $40?
He did the exact same thing.
Oh, he did it to a bunch of people.
Yeah, I found out he did it to a ton of people.
Yeah. Yeah, fuck you. You know what? I gave you the money. I hope that that's the money that fucking, causes the OD. Fuck you. I really hope it's not the money that causes your OD.
It's like,
oh,
Jesus,
God. But don't edit that out because I want people to really know what I think. Josh Briggs, I don't like. Paul Richard.
wait, why don't you like Josh Briggs?
Oh, fuck Josh Briggs. Who likes Josh Briggs?
I don't think I've ever.
You don't want to. You don't want to.
I'll tell you this, just so Josh can hear.
Yep.
I did not like Josh Briggs when I first met him. And it's because I thought that he had this chip on his shoulder, and I looked at him, saw him in the locker room, saw the way he walked around, the way he acted, and I was like, this fucking guy thinks he's God's gift to earth. Once I got to talking to him and I really understood him, and then I looked at myself in the mirror, I was like, oh, he's just like me. He doesn't want to deal with anyone. And so I tell people do this all the time. I always say, don't judge a book by its cover. Don't judge a base by what you see. And I looked in the mirror, and then I finally came to a realization. And I feel like, just to throw his name out there, I feel like everyone does this with JT Dunn too, because JT Dunn does the same thing. He avoids people. If you avoid everyone, then you avoid the drama in wrestling.
Yeah.
And so I think I made the mistake of judging Josh and saying I hated him for one reason. And I completely flipped my opinion around and was like, oh, no, Josh is just like me. He just doesn't want to fucking deal with people.
And for the record, I love Josh. I was at his wedding last weekend. But I told him last night, I'm like, I'm just going to say I hate you, and we're going to see who texts you.
Damn, we got to edit that part out. So.
Paul Richard.
Paul Richard.
Yeah. He's just one of those guys that'll let you know that he worked for ECW.
The Extreme Commissioner.
Yeah. And like, it's not a person that I hate or even dislike. He's in the you just annoy me category. Like, I just don't want to be around you. The brother, like, if you say brother, and you mean it, like, I'm just annoyed by that. So yeah, him. Dan Marotti's another one of those guys that I've always been like, oh, you're just annoying to me. Like, is your foot ever going to get better?
I remember coming to a show, and Tommaso made me cry laughing because he shook Dan Marotti's hand, and he goes, oh, you're still doing the foot gimmick, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a fucking work. We know it's a work at this point. Stop it. And then there's a dude named Rockin' Randy, who
heard that name.
Yeah, he's a big Midwest guy. He was actually a enhancement guy for WWF.
That's probably right.
Randy Fox and Rockin' Randy. But he and I got into it over a political thing because on Facebook, if you're a Republican, I'm a Democrat. If you're a Democrat, I'm a Republican.
I do the same thing.
Oh my God, it's so much fun.
I don't follow politics.
Me neither. I don't know anything. I don't know anything.
Come election time, it's Troll City.
Oh my God, I've been unfriended and banned, but Rockin' Randy like went personal at me when I was just fucking with him. And I didn't even say anything bad, but he just went off on me. So I exposed Rockin' Randy's secret about why he's no longer allowed to run shows on the naval base. And right away, those posts were deleted. Anything he ever said about me was deleted. And he, unfriended me and everything else. But Rockin' Randy used to run shows at Naval Station Great Lakes. And I was friends with the MWR person. And Randy never went back. And the reason for it was the last show he did there, he promised them Kamala, the Patriot, and there was someone else that he promised them, gave them a big fat black kid, painted up as Kamala, gave him a fake Patriot, and like all the sailors knew. So they never brought him back. And yeah, I just don't like that you took money from, the MWR and sort of ripped him off.
All right.
Anyone else? Like, if you guys name people, I will just say yes or no if they annoy me or not. Like, you could just go, like...
Chaotic Wrestling.
Annoy. Oh, my God. Fucking up your pay, guys. I remember that meeting when Brian and Chase took over where, the pay's going to go up. And no, it hasn't. And don't pay in a check either. It's embarrassing to go to the bank with that check. Like, what do I do with that?
It's a funny story. I went to a check cashing place.
Yep.
They refused to cash my Chaotic Wrestling.
Yeah, it's because it's written in ink. Like, no, it's not. It's
I had a printed
type it out.
one
They type it
signed,
out.
I believe.
Oh,
They
yeah.
type it out and they sign them that day.
Yeah, damn it, Chase and Brian, stop it. But yeah, like so many people actually annoy me, but I don't really hate anyone. Like everyone I've listed, except Credible and that Sean Hubbard kid, I hate. I just get annoyed by them. Sean Hubbard and Justin Credible, I genuinely dislike.
Who's got a lot of heat in New England? We can bring their name up.
Buddy Romano.
Doesn't annoy me.
Me neither.
I'm entertained by him and Todd Sopel going back and forth. Like they don't annoy me. Who annoys me on social media? Like I actually scrolled through Facebook to see who, and like nobody even popped up. Like I love shitting on people on podcasts.
Yeah.
And I think it's because I buried the hatchet with so many people that I don't know. I'm old now, and I'm a different human being than I was 10 years ago. But I still love shitting. Like it's a wrestling thing.
Just like roasting the boys and stuff.
Yeah, and that's what I'm doing it on a podcast. I'm not doing it in a car.
Yeah.
I would say the same thing to your face that I say behind your back. If you want to have a confrontation with me, let's fucking go.
Yeah.
Like I'll meet you somewhere. We can have a conversation. If you want to fight me, even better, because I love to fight. Like, let's just, I'm not afraid of a little confrontation. I think it's really good.
All right, so question 4. What does the future hold for Joey Eastman?
I don't know. That was the question I wasn't looking forward to because I honestly don't know. Like, I'm probably just going to keep on managing in New England. I'm probably going to up my pay again at the beginning of the year so that way more places stop booking me so I can slow down more and more. It's sort of been my thing the last couple of years is like keep asking for more money and then 1 or 2 places stop using me and that's an extra free weekend. I would, now that I've been doing a lot of commentary and like the pay's really good, I never knew that, it was good. I would love to move out of managing completely and into commentary, but not a lot of places do commentary. So, yeah.
All right. Well, like I said, we could probably go on and on and on.
Oh my God. I
Not
could do
just
this all
managing,
day.
just wrestling.
Oh my God. I like the shitting on people.
I do hope you come back someday. We'd love to have you.
I would love to. Like, this is episode 10, so it's a milestone episode.
Exactly.
How we got here, the road, and it ends at me. It culminates.
We were
the first 10.
Hoping to do some round tables with a lot of people. So if we could ever do like, say you, Sean Gorman, and maybe another wrestler.
Me,
manager.
Sheldon Goldberg, and Paul Richard. Let's do it. I'm in. And I will make it so uncomfortable. Tarzan, thank you for not booking me in your
I'd
booking
like to
time.
point out, I booked a show for Brian Privatera in Haverhill, Massachusetts at the YMCA. I booked you on that show.
You did. You did. I remember that. I managed Johnny Vegas that night. Yes.
I think you managed a tag team. I can't remember. It was, God, what the hell are their names? You'll know them. They're from Chaotic. 2 really big dudes.
Sledge
Sledge.
and
Mike Nice. Barricade.
Barricade there.
You know, first time I ever met Barricade was my first weekend moving out to New England. And Nikki Rocks told me to come down to the show because I knew her from Shimmer.
Yeah.
So I look at Barricade, who was a student at the time, or maybe it was Sledge. It might have been Sledge. He was a student at the time. And I'm like, hey, Nikki told me to, have somebody go back and grab her and let her know that I was here. My name's Joey Eastman. No. I'm like, oh, fuck you. And then the next weekend I'm on a show with him at Mavs, and I made it very uncomfortable for him.
And if anyone who knows Sledge, he's not exactly the most he's a very nice guy.
Yes.
Sledge is super nice, and so I can imagine you making him comfortable. He probably did not deal with that well.
He was just protecting Nikki. Like, he didn't know me at all. And that's what he explained to me. Like, I didn't know you.
But I gave you an opportunity to fuck with him, so you did.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
All right, where can people find you on social media?
At S. Bakabella on the Twitter machine, Joey Eastman or Joey Eastmania on Instagram, and then on Facebook you could find me.
Just Joey
and ChikaraPro.com and anything Chikara for social media.
All right, while we're on the subject of social media, Julian, where can people find us on social media?
You can locate Truth, Justice, and the New England Pro Wrestling Way on Facebook. It is a like page. Please stop by and give us a like. Leave some feedback there. Answer any questions we may have for you. You can find us on Twitter at Pro Wrestling Way. We will update the Twitter, same as Facebook. So whatever your platform of choice is, please go there. And you can also find us on any major podcasting app that you see fit. Please download, like, subscribe. Give us a star rating. Give us some feedback on anything that you may see that we can adjust on this podcast to make it the best listening experience for you.
All right, free plug time, Joey Eastman. Where can fans find you?
I love free plugs. So this Saturday, I'm actually ruining someone's wedding. Sidney has been booked to ruin a wedding. So I'm really hoping that takes off. Like, I really want that to be my exit from wrestling. My God. And then next weekend, next Friday night, I'll be at Limitless Wrestling. You can see me there in Portland, Maine, I believe it is. Yeah, Portland. And then November the 9th is the Chikara Season 20 finale in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So big things at Chikara right now, and I'm just happy that I'm involved in them.
It's some kind of happening, and you're part of it.
Yes, it's really cool.
This is going to be a share. Is that a Seinfeld?
No, that's WrestleMania 4.
Yep, Gorilla Monsoon.
Oh, okay.
He knew the reference.
I was going to, I don't fucking know anything. I hear it on our buddies over there at WPAN. They say sometimes they hit that same line, so I'm always curious where that's coming from.
I'll just give you the context for anyone who doesn't know. Ricky's dragging steamboats out there with his kid, and Gorilla Monsoon says, that youngster's saying, I don't know what's going on, but this is some kind of happening, and I'm part of it.
Okay.
What was his son, like 2 years old?
Yeah, a little kid. Yeah. Richie Steamboat, who was going to be so freaking good in wrestling and blew out everything in his knee. Oh. My God, he was going to be a star.
All right. Before we're going to wrap this up, any final thoughts for anybody out there in podcasting?
Any advice for any future managers or anyone who wants to be a manager? Or how should they approach it or anything like that?
Go to a school. Learn, and Brian Fury, this is for you, train managers. I'll fucking come down and do it. But train managers, even if you teach them how to bump and then throw them out there on smaller shows and teach them the psychology, you're leaving money on the table and you're probably missing out on a really, really good manager that is now discouraged. So train people.
So you do think there's a future for managing stuff in professional wrestling?
It'll never die. The only people that think that it's a dying art or not even a dying art, but that it's not going to be around soon are bitter, shitty managers. I'm good, so I know that I'm always going to get work no matter where I go.
All right. I want to thank everyone for joining us here on Truth, Justice, and the New England Pro Wrestling Way. It's always been a pleasure. Please go to our Facebook with any comments, questions, concern, feedback. We're always looking to improve. Were we too nice to Joey? Were we not mean enough? Any questions we should have asked that we can bring up when we bring him back on the show? Not just him, any guests whatsoever. Guests you'd like to see, ideas for topics. Whatever it is, please give us a like. Please comment. What do you think, Julian?
Even if it's anything as simple as the sound quality, I can tell you that I am struggling to try and get this perfect, and I am just as anal at, well, probably not as anal as Mike Crockett from the WPAN, but just give us feedback on absolutely anything. Timing, structure. It doesn't have to be just the guest related or show related as far as like the content, but it can be like the quality of the show. You guys are the fans listening, and we want to make it the best listening experience for you. We can't do that if we don't get anything, negative. And I'll stand by my word, as I said earlier. Negative feedback causes a learning experience, telling us what we do well. I mean, if you don't tell us anything at all on it, I have to assume it's working. So,
And if you have any future New England wrestling trivia questions you'd like to ask, bring that up as well.
Who was the wrestler that dressed as a turtle? That is my favorite wrestler.
Steve the Turtle Warner.
Yes! Ding, 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 ding.
And if you're listening to this and you live in the New England area, support New England wrestling. Go to wrestling shows, whether it be WWE, whether it be Chaotic Wrestling, whether it be NECW, XWA, Limitless, Blitzkrieg,
Beyond Wrestling.
Beyond Wrestling. Go out, Top Rope. Go out and support local New England wrestling. Thank you all for joining us again, and we're going to see you for another episode of Truth, Justice, and the New England Pro Wrestling Way.